There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
Are you guys on, what's it called, Twatch?
Yo, Threads.
Yeah, Twatch. No. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it, but I don't think I will.
In an interesting synchronicity, Threads, which debuted today. Threads debuted today. Of course, it's the whole like Instagram thing. Threads is also the name of a movie in which nuclear bombs destroy England. And it's about the consequences of nuclear warfare.
And that is actually just as destructive as social media.
Synchronicity.
It really is.
And let's hope that's the farthest it goes.
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, Threads. That's a good synchronicity. You know what's also strange? 3 days ago, July 3rd, 1947, is the anniversary of the Roswell incident.
Oh.
Well, how is that a synchronicity with the Manhattan Project?
I'm just saying,
We're going to get into it.
You'll see.
We're gonna get into
But I
it.
want to talk about the real problem of the Manhattan Project.
Okay.
We've been talking a lot about sloughing. People have been really upset about us besmirching the good name and the good works the United States of America did during World War II, and then we kind of ruined it with dropping a bunch of atomic bombs.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I got a bunch of DMs being like, good sloughing talk.
It was.
Welcome to Sloughy Talk.
Talk amongst yourselves. Why don't you
Whoa.
melt amongst yourselves?
Oh, no.
But I realized one of the real true demons of the Manhattan Project is that there was, and this is true, one of the offshoots of the research within the Manhattan Project was the creation of glitter.
Gary Glitter.
His namesake. Glitter was created as a way to hold the plutonium, or it was an idea that we could help like stabilize plutonium inside of the bomb.
Yeah.
But instead they just liked how it looked and they sprinkled it on a bunch of shit.
Well, I mean, how much nicer would Nagasaki and Hiroshima looked with a little bit of glitter?
You see, atomic bomb. We got to glam it up.
Glam it up.
Atomic bomb.
Also, now it's Skinny Boy, and it is non-binary individual.
Interesting. And this is really what the LGBTQ community is looking for, is more representation within giant destructive bombs.
Yep, sorry guys, Halliburton's not gay anymore. It's no longer Pride Month. Okay, everyone, welcome to Last Podcast on the Left. Ben hanging out with Henry and Marcus. Holy hell, what a slog it's been.
Slog? It's not been a slog.
He doesn't understand its history. It's flights of fancy.
You guys are the ones who are always like, I'm so tired. And I'm like, well, don't do all the work then.
Unbelievable.
Come on. Okay, everyone. We are on.
So we just said 2 months of work.
And 2 months of work.
That's just of the show.
Yeah.
That's just with yelling and
2
talking on the show.
months. 2 months. 2 months? Okay. Manhattan Project, Part 6. And is this the final one, or is this going to be a Nightmare on Elm Street? Are we going...
This is called The Project Takes Manhattan.
Okay, great. This is Friday the 13th, perhaps.
So when we last left our story, Japan had surrendered to the United States, much to the relief of at least those in Japan who were slowly starving to death.
Yeah.
However, there were some ultranationalist fanatics in the military who didn't actually believe that the emperor would ever surrender, much like the soldiers who spent years, and in some cases decades, fighting private wars against nobody in particular.
Wait a second. Are you talking about me?
There you go.
It is interesting because you can kind of see where Supernova in the East talks a lot about the kind of the buildup of this like really intense war fever inside of Japan and the adherence to the emperor and the belief of his sort of like deity-like status. You could see, though, how events like this that took place shows kind of some proof that the Japanese were on some levels not quote unquote ready to surrender ever. They never would be. And that's kind of like why they got their really intense reputation.
Yeah.
There's people still fighting the war today.
Which ones?
Well, you would have to go there and ask them what's going on.
I think now mostly they're into Coca-Cola products.
Yeah.
I've seen that giant robots. They love their mecha.
Ramuni is a very tasty soda.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a little ball in it.
Isn't that something? Do you like it better than Iron Brew?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
There's nothing I love more than Iron Brew, except for the possibility of Lemon Lime Solo, which I think may have been a fever dream because nobody seems to know what the fuck I'm talking about. I had a can of it in a fucking airport in Australia, and I've never heard of it again. It's incredible, and yet gone forever.
You just went to the same universe where David Grush went to pull out those objects from the other. That's the other Marcus.
Oh,
Had that lemon lime solo.
Wow, he's loving life.
Well, indeed, the ultra-nationalists on the mainland were so deeply fanatic that the only explanation for a general surrender that they could possibly accept was that the man who'd given the address over the radio had been an Allied imposter.
Conspiracy theories can happen anywhere and everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no way someone would do a voice interpretation over the radio.
You can't
An
do it.
impressionist?
No, this wasn't quite as ridiculous as you might think. 'cause
it's Ray Romano.
Oh my God, please don't do
Is
that.
Ray Romano
No,
on the
that was not
show?
an intro.
Yeah, it's me, Johnny Carson. And,
That's not even close.
Johnny Carson.
Johnny-
Like a glove.
Don't even know what that is.
Put that in a basket.
It's an amalgamation of all of your past trauma.
Well, imitation wasn't really an issue because the radio address given by Emperor Hirohito was the first time that the Japanese population had ever heard his voice.
No
It's
kid.
me, not Ray Romano. Emperor Hirohito to say, time for everybody to go to sleep. Sleepy time.
Wait, is that the emperor? That's the guy who we think is a god?
Yeah. I mean, this was kind of like hearing the voice of God. It was highly jarring for most of Japan, but it also gave plenty of room for allegations of disinformation. Furthermore, most of Japan had no idea of the full extent of what had happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
No one did.
No one did. So the idea that there was a super weapon laying in wait to raise the rest of their country, this was not on the forefront of most people's minds.
I mean, it also makes sense because at the end of the emperor's address, he was like, "And don't forget your tactical bath. You're going to want to buy a tactical bath. And for the patriots out there, we've got Patriot popcorn. And yeah, don't worry, we've separated the caramel from the cheddar. And oh my God, the plain popcorn. We call that the Jewish popcorn.
Very interesting.
Totally separated as well.
I actually, once he got into merch,
Yeah.
I did not know
It
that
was impressive.
Hirohito was going to move so much. T-shirts, water bottles,
Cut corn.
Cut corn.
corn.
Cut corn.
See, that's good. That's why you got to write for InfoWars.
Yeah, somebody does.
Well, as a result, because there are many people in the military who did not believe that Emperor Hirohito would ever surrender, 32 young Japanese officers stormed the emperor's palace in Tokyo, claiming that the man on the radio couldn't have been the real Hirohito because Hirohito would never surrender. In their zeal, these officers killed a commanding general and set fire to the home of the prime minister before filling it with bullets from a machine gun.
Everybody kill this house.
Yeah. And one of the strangest things is one of the guys that stormed the building there, he actually played Jimmy Pesto on Bob's Burgers. Bob's
Lord,
Burgers.
I
Bob's
just-
Burgers.
good
What was the
Lord.
point of that Bob's Burgers
He's making
reference?
a January 6th reference
Oh.
to
The
them
guy who played
attacking
Jimmy
the
Pesto
house.
stormed the
They-
Capitol.
Yes.
I know him best as the herky jerky
The
man.
herky jerky man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's even weirder.
They can't even- the audience
He
can't
should've
see,
done that
but-
when he stormed the
I'm
Capitol.
doing it.
Well, by the entertainment for everyone.
Everyone.
That's right. Well, by the end of this highly misguided misadventure, 6 Japanese guards were dead and all 32 insurgents had been killed. The overreaction to the surrender, however, wasn't yet at an end. Around the same time as the attack on the Emperor's Palace, a group of ultra-nationalists who were part of a secret society called the Black Dragon Society.
That's
Yes.
cool. Yeah.
They also made 2 unsuccessful attempts at assassinating the prime minister.
Well, they were kind of like, weren't they sort of a Japan supremacy group? Like, isn't it in that in that
Oh, yeah.
world? Yeah, where it's because they had a massive that's how we got to here.
Yeah.
Is that they identified with the nationalist streak of the Nazi Party.
Yeah, well, it's ultra-nationalist. There's a reason why they put the ultra at the beginning of nationalist, because this is far beyond anything that you
I
might
just thought
see.
I thought it just left your engine cleaner.
Well, absolutely, and it could. I've also been drinking a lot of Michelob Ultra.
See, that's keeping his engine cleaner. I haven't
go.
heard a rumble from his engine in quite a period of, like, honestly, his farts are completely silent. And I want to thank Michelob Ultra for that.
Thank you very much.
Well, the next day after that double assassination attempt, 10 young men calling themselves the Sonjo Gigun seized a hill within sight of the American embassy. And they then killed themselves by setting 5 grenades off simultaneously.
Excuse me, Emperor Hirohito, I just got to let you know, I know you're in the middle of like very long breakfast. But a couple of guys that we don't really care about just ruined a hill.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, I mean, what's the point of this?
Well, now they're starting to change a little bit. Now they're starting to accept that Hirohito has indeed surrendered. So now the shame is setting in on the Japanese military.
So they're blowing themselves up on hills now.
Yes.
Okay.
When General Douglas MacArthur arrived in Japan with a corncob pipe hanging from his lips,
Yeah.
32 members of various ultranationalist secret societies disemboweled themselves in the act of harikiri.
Well, geez, a simple hello would have
That's
done.
fucking sweet. He's been like, they love me. He just shows up, the guts just shooting out of him like it's a fucking New Year's Eve party favor. And he's like, yeah, wow, gut busted.
But, like, seriously, Pamela, can you tell me, is it me? People keep on committing suicide as soon as they see me. Is it me?
Yeah, I think it's you and the entire U.S. military-industrial complex behind you.
It's still a little baby, though.
It is.
Well, there was great meaning to General Douglas MacArthur setting foot on Japanese soil. This was the first time in Japan's 1,200-year history that an invading force had ever made it through.
Wow.
The first time. And these guys were, they were stabbing themselves in the stomach in public out of shame that they had allowed the defeat to occur.
Did they do that to you when you showed up with Carolina?
What?
Did they start stabbing themselves as soon as they saw you at all? When you went to Japan?
No, they welcomed him with open arms. They love tourism.
Absolutely not. We were actually revered when we got there. Because Revered,
You
yes.
were revered.
Yeah, guy came and he was just like, oh my God. Because they thought he was Katie Lang. Because
the
she's
Japanese
huge
love
over there.
Katie Lang.
Well,
Absolutely
doesn't.
love Katie Lang.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was weird. We were pointed at as like funny Americans. Like, look at the tall Americans.
So they were making fun of you, and then in your mind, in order not to commit suicide, you were revered.
It's called the comedian's mind. I take the laughter at me, I flip it to with me.
Ah.
Revered.
Okay.
But while the mood around Japan was grim to say the least,
Sounds like it.
cities and towns across America erupted in celebration on the day that victory was declared over Japan, known thenceforth as VJ Day.
Yeah, man, that's when everyone was Charlestoning. Everybody had a balloon, and then obviously they had to pop it because, again, air is for the soldiers.
That's true.
And
That's true.
They were out there. Whoo, man, that party. So much white casserole.
In New York City, 2 million people huddled into Times Square.
Wow.
One veteran described the celebration as 10 New Year's Eves all rolled into one.
You wouldn't even believe it. It was just, I couldn't even.
Well, I mean, honestly, the way that the war aged the people, it kind of was.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
By the next morning, the sidewalks in the garment district were 5 inches deep with scraps of fabric
Wow.
that had been thrown as an impromptu ticker tape celebration.
You can't say we don't know how to party.
Here's some fabric.
This, however, was one of the celebrations that went well.
What?
The one that's been fondly remembered for nearly a century.
Yeah.
Usually, this scene is what's shown at the end of most World War II documentaries
is,
as an
indeed.
example of innocent American jubilance and romanticism.
Oh, yeah, we let Rosie the Riveter put her dress back on. We went right back to and it was awesome. It was a great day, right?
Yeah. But over on the West Coast, the celebrations turn dark.
Oh,
Why?
God.
In San Francisco, VJ Day celebrations quickly devolved into a 72-hour riot,
Whoa.
the deadliest in the city's history.
As it never stopped her.
I guess it's still going today.
For 3 days straight, a riot crew made up of 90% soldiers and sailors held the city hostage.
Oh, no.
And by the end of it, 1,000 people were injured, at least 6, but probably dozens of women had been raped, and an even 100 were dead.
They should not have booked Limp Bizkit for that.
I feel like, yeah, exactly. I they needed water. They needed porta potties.
Yeah.
So this was like the one
What?
like good day we had.
No,
Like it was like before everything.
What
it
are
was
you
like,
talking about, the one good day we had?
I mean, in terms of like after World War II.
as far as a nation, and they ruined it.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah,
like,
San Francisco ruined it with the 3 days of mayhem.
Well, why did they riot?
Yeah,
I
'cause
don't actually get it.
That's how we party.
Yeah, I mean, why do people riot after fucking Super Bowl victories?
Well, because
why do they,
it's
why
very
do they
rare
riot?
when the fucking Packers make it to the Super Bowl, and if they do win, no, actually in Wisconsin, They just eat.
Yeah.
They do.
Well, think of it this way. This is a Super Bowl riot, a fucking Stanley Cup riot,
Yes.
times 1,000.
Right.
It's that same energy.
So
Why,
it probably started off with Jubilee, and then
Well,
okay,
let's
we'll get
get
into
into
it.
it.
Let's get into it.
Now, the San Francisco VJ Day riots began on Market Street, where
Okay.
thousands of drunken soldiers and sailors jammed and gridlocked the streets.
Oh yeah, I know that whole area.
Mhm.
It's a guy you can see, you can imagine it being
Yeah.
jammed.
It's beautiful now.
The police, meanwhile, have been told to, quote, let the people do anything within reason.
It's the exact same as now as well.
Okay, yeah.
That leeway, of course, was San Francisco's fatal mistake. Soon, soldiers and sailors were climbing onto the roofs of jammed streetcars
Okay.
where drunken Marines clumsily tried to reenact the famous flag-raising photo from Iwo Jima.
That's so far, that's fun. That's just good old-fashioned fun, yeah.
That is fun, yeah.
But once the revelers got a little taste of chaos, it was off to the races for the greatest generation.
They just need to be able to dye their hair. This is what guys, they need more outlets.
There wasn't any, was there hair dye then?
They just got done killing a bunch of people. You figured they don't get it out of their system.
Absolutely. They did not get done. They did not just finish killing a bunch of people, and that's part of the point. We'll get to that here in a
These
second.
may have been the scallywags that didn't do anything at all.
The soldiers and sailors began setting fires, smashing windows, overturning cars, and according to witnesses, gang raping women. As one reporter put it, you couldn't stop the crowd with anything short of tear gas and fire hoses. And yet, the city of San Francisco did little to stop the mayhem.
Yeah, they could have tried the tear gas and the fire hoses. Once the gang rape starts, I feel like then we can move on to other methods of stopping the crowd.
Well, I just don't think that we're even celebrating the victory anymore.
Well,
No,
I mean,
no.
and that's true when it comes to the Super Bowl. After 2 hours post Super Bowl, they forgot why they're partying.
Oh yeah, now the idea is that it's some expression of a group rage that has been embedded within a
scary.
community, and then they are unleashing it for some reason.
Well, I mean, this is not
I'm talking about
rape.
Super Bowl, like
right,
what
right.
Philly does every year, no matter what happens.
Yeah, they're upset.
No, this isn't a rage thing. This is a little more complicated than that. Now, as opposed to the guys and dolls in New York who've been fighting in the European theater for years, those are the guys who had spent years killing people.
And that's why that was a nice celebration, because those guys had basically just seen a bunch of horrible shit. Now they're just like that one woman said she wasn't really kissed with her consent.
Mhm.
It's in the famous picture.
Yeah.
But, at the same, that guy was fine at it at the time.
The majority of the soldiers and sailors rioting in San Francisco had never seen combat. These boys were draftees waiting to be sent to the Pacific, where they'd been told that they would most likely be entering into a years-long hellscape battling the quote-unquote savage Japanese on their home turf. Furthermore, it was being said over and over and over again in the press that at least 1 million combat troops would be killed taking the Japanese homeland.
I feel like that should be kind of a sense of relief then.
Well, that's the thing.
I would be happy I didn't go, yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, let's put it this way. Thankfully for my family's honor, my papa, he was in boot camp on VJ Day over in California.
No one's indicting your family here.
No, we're not coming for your family.
But that's just to say
okay.
he did not participate in the riots. But from what he told me, he was, to put it lightly, a bit worried about going up against the Japanese.
As anybody would be.
Yeah, man. I don't
want to go to war.
Yeah.
Never mind
Half
a
of you-
world war. I don't want to go to a localized war.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to a city-based war. I just want to have, because what is war good for?
Nothing.
Except for helping the economy.
There you go.
Now, this is, of course, no excuse for the behavior of the servicemen in San Francisco, but it does give you a glimpse into just how relieved America was following the use of the atomic bomb and how grateful they were to have such a weapon. An incredible tension had been broken, but it had not been broken with a prolonged Navy blockade or a diplomatic solution as it should have been. It was broken by a big fucking bang. 2 big bangs, in fact, the likes of which the world had never seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may have had a little bit of influence on the behavior of the soldiers and sailors in San Francisco.
There is definitely a sense that we showed our gigantic cock and balls to the world when we set off 2 atomic bombs in wartime scenario. And I think that they could see that as sort of they got swept into it.
And there is also something to be said. I mean, a lot of these guys were Marines, they were sailors. There is something to be said for, training these guys to kill for months and months and months at a time. And then all of a sudden, you're not going to be killing anymore. Instead, you don't have to do anything, but you still have that instinct within you to kill, violence.
You know what you got to do?
And that's just how it was expressed.
1940s America, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, a lot of wild hogs. You got to take these folks down to Texas, get them on the wild hogs.
Oh, I agree.
You got to have them killing all them hogs.
Have them fight the hogs.
Ben, I'm sorry, I got to drop a little bit of Texas knowledge on you. The wild hogs did not come until much later.
Yeah.
The wild hog problem didn't really come until the 90s when actual pigs started getting turned out into the population. They started breeding with boars, and then just shit got out of hand. So wild hogs were nowhere near as pervasive back in the 40s.
Well, who knows? Either way, what I'm saying is they should have directed their anger towards something that deserved it.
I do feel like when you keep saying wild hogs coming to Texas, it does sound like a big fat man version of the Hawaiian Tropic Girls. Just going around, just having men rub them with lard and shit, just like being like, yeah, that's 10. I like them shiny.
I love the Hawaiian hogs.
Coming to Abilene, Texas.
Well, you better watch out. You better hold that. Oh, you better cover them soup canteens because the wild hogs running. You can't keep a bowl empty.
We got the wild hogs at Midnight Rodeo from Friday to Sunday.
You can't even see their dicks.
That's great. What time does it start?
Now, once the rioters in San Francisco got all tuckered out on the first day, the violence died down.
That's when Nora Jones was doing her set.
Oh, very fantastic. I saw her at Willie Nelson's 90th birthday party, and she did a fantastic song with Chris Christopherson.
Really great.
Do you remember which song?
They sang the same one twice. Chris doesn't really know how to sing anymore, but he is indeed the greatest generation.
He was after the greatest generation.
Wasn't he the greatest gen?
He was Vietnam.
He's Vietnam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Top Navy brass, however, even after the first day of rioting, they did not cancel leave. They did not admonish their men. Instead, they politely requested that the sailors and soldiers return to their ships. Guys, come back. Guys. They basically gave them a guys.
Yeah, come on, guys. Let's go 69 back in the vessel.
Come on, guys.
The guys didn't, of course.
No, they didn't. I toured one of those fucking submarines on the wharf there in San Francisco. I don't know how any of them aren't gay.
That's where my father...
Because there was no room. I would be so fucking scared on that thing.
I feel like the one thing that keeps you truly from being gay in a submarine is the smell.
I think that's who cares at this point.
I just feel like everybody, the food is bad enough. The idea of a submariner's dick going in and out of your mouth, I feel like on some level is unpleasant.
And the dried cum.
The dried cum.
Oh, it's definitely
flaking
still
everywhere.
cum everywhere. People are jerking
Never
off their
mind
young
just
boys.
That's
the
true.
psoriasis, just in general. But according to my father, he said they didn't get gay until they surfaced.
Well,
interesting.
You want to do it for show.
Rise from your grave.
Well, the riots continued for another 2 days. More women were raped, far more people of both genders were seriously injured, and 100 people died, either as a consequence of the chaos or in trying to stop it. They're killing cops.
Do you guys just remember this is about the war being over?
Yeah, this is a horrible way to celebrate San Fran. Come on.
And this is the so-called greatest generation as well.
I know you continue to dig.
Yeah, because
Tom Brokaw.
because those assholes spent so many fucking years looking down on every generation after them. Oh, we did so great. Oh, we were so honorable. Oh, we did this. Oh, we did that.
You have so much weird anger.
He does.
I have nothing. I feel nothing.
You know what's funny is that I'm here. We did this last week when he got real hardcore on it. I like seeing Hot Take Marcus.
No, I know.
I like feeling this heat because I just view us all as the same fucking. I don't think time's real. You know, and that's my main issue is that we're even talking about this. I don't think any of this even technically happened. I think this was in another Earth, and we're actually diverted into another timeline somewhere around 1947, and it doesn't even matter looking back on these people.
Yeah, that's a good way to handle the past by just pretending it never happened.
I just kind of just coast on that.
And you're misunderstanding my anger. It's actually less about the condescension.
It's bitterness.
It's not bitterness, not at all. It's about historical accuracy. It's about actually looking at the history of America with open eyes and actually seeing what actually happened in this country throughout its fucking entirety without sucking the dicks of anybody that don't deserve their dicks to be sucked.
I will say, in terms of a Satanist point of view, it was good that the greatest generation did these horrible things to make us on top. That is kind of of the idea, right? We can thank them for our lovely Apple computer. We can thank
I don't
them
know if we
for
can
these.
thank the
Look at
people
my
for
shoe culture. You can
Wow,
thank them for
those
these
I
shoes
don't
are
know why you're
really
taking your
green.
clothes
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like we can
They're
really.
green shoes. Not the people in San Francisco. We'll exclude them. We'll do a carve out. We're going to do a greatest generation carve out. If you're in San Francisco at this time, you're not part of it. And
You're
you're
on
dead.
the bad list.
You're dead. Because I do believe there's one left. There's one greater generation person left.
There's one World War. I think there's more than one World War
I
II.
don't know. No, there's one that they can talk to.
Yeah.
okay,
One
that's
guy who
yeah.
doesn't just go bashi. Yeah. There's one guy who's so like, but you don't want to really hear what he has to say.
No, for the most part, we know that they're still alive, but from the other side, because they're still getting arrested for war crimes.
But in the end, no one was charged with murder in the San Francisco riots. No one was really charged with anything of consequence. At worst, they were thrown in the drunk tank. And as a result, the deadly riot quietly slipped into the dustbin of history in favor of a feel-good picture of a handsome sailor kissing a pretty gal amidst a moment of jubilation.
I really thought we were going to have one pleasant moment.
It does seem
like in this show.
I mean, the one
But
in New
we didn't.
York was nice because then you go down to McSorley's. You have your what is it? Just white or is it white or red?
McSorley's
Yeah.
is extremely overrated.
Yeah.
No,
That's
but
my
it
hot
was
take.
no,
you want to talk
I
about
know.
my true
Oh
hot
my
take?
God.
That's my hot take.
Yeah. And I'm going to say that moment in New York, I did give you that. That
Thank you.
was a nice moment.
Sweet.
See?
Hot
Yeah.
dogs, get your hot dogs here.
It's like I
Everyone's
was there.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, while America was celebrating the end of a 4-year war, rightfully so for those who didn't behave like those in San Francisco, there were plenty of good ones
That's good.
out there in America.
See?
The horrors of Hiroshima and now Nagasaki.
Oh, God, right back. Right fucking back.
But you know, the strangest thing is, as soon as they dropped the bomb, they played this clip from a guy named Urkel, and it was like, and it just
And he said, "Did I do that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those horrors were getting exponentially worse. Hundreds of crows filled the sky.
Good Lord.
Jesus fucking
It
hell.
became Halloween Town. I didn't know
know.
Jack Skellington was there.
Hundreds of crows. Man, I do love a good crow. They're so smart. They give you treats if you feed them.
Yeah, well,
do.
guess what, man? They weren't getting any treats in fucking Hiroshima.
No.
Hundreds of crows filled the skies above both cities, occasionally landing to pick the flesh.
Sorry.
No, we have to get through it.
No,
We have to get through
it's
this.
real. This is real. This is absolutely real.
This is real. So from the streets of San Francisco,
Yeah.
be sure to bring
Yeah, I got my
flour-
rice-a-roni
bring
on
a
one
flower
side.
in your hair and maybe a shank.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Let's try one more time.
And now here we go. Crows eating human flesh.
Hundreds of crows
Yep.
filled the skies above both cities, occasionally landing to pick the flesh from the radioactive dead.
Oh, Lord. Get the lead out or whatever. They fucking
Yeah,
have
these
some
crows
fun
are
of
going to
it.
end up being radioactive.
They were.
Oh,
And so, to prevent animals from treating their countrymen as carrion, and possibly just to do something, the survivors began to gather the corpses for mass cremations across both cities. Oil was poured on corpse piles that were described as mountainous, then set on fire. But because of the nature of the injuries sustained was so poorly understood, people inside the funeral pyre who had merely been unconscious came crawling out of
Oh
the
my
pile
God.
when they found themselves set on fire.
hey guys, I'm actually fine.
You
I'm
know
fine.
what? Actually, I'll just stay.
I seriously
At
might.
this point, crows are eating the radiated dead?
Yeah.
Hey, just throw some kerosene. Yeah, add some kerosene, please.
Please, just get it done with faster.
Some actually had enough in them to run out. So there's these gigantic mountains of corpses,
Just
and there's
on
people
fire.
and there's people on fire running around them. It's incredible.
I don't like this new Burning Man. You get it.
Cancelable.
I don't.
That's what I'll say.
Cancelable.
Cancelable.
Oh, no.
In other parts of the city, the bodies were stacked in a manner so haphazard that identifying them became impossible. In one case, 2 men argued over an unrecognizably scorched body laying between their houses because both of them claimed that the corpse was that of their wife.
Wow. Are we still
This is-
talking about San Francisco?
Oh my God, this is like the worst version of
that's
the
horrible.
"Take My Wife, Please" thing I've ever heard.
That
of.
is bad. That is bad. Yeah, that's, man. Oof.
Others found only traces of family members, something as small as a ring, which became the only way to identify a blackened corpse or, in some cases, a pile of ashes. In another case, a woman identified the eyeless corpse of her mother by the gold tooth in her mouth, which had been left wide open by the scream she'd let loose as she died. But as far as the dead
I'm
went...
surprised the gold didn't melt, truly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, she actually probably had been killed in the firestorm afterwards. Because
See,
Gotcha.
you almost
you
let one thing kind of just lie there.
Yeah,
And
because
he just said, actually, what
The
you were going to say was
firestorm
actually
afterwards.
much worse.
It's actually a lot worse, yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as the dead went within the radius of the most extreme radioactive exposure, they were the lucky ones. Burn wounds on the most badly exposed stubbornly refused to heal and began to decay while the victim was still alive, attracting insects that usually waited until the victim had died. As one childhood memory went, a boy was attempting to take care of the burns on his mother's hands, legs, and back, in addition to a cracked skull. Like so many others, her burns wouldn't heal, but when the skin dried and peeled off, the boy saw why. His mother's flesh underneath her skin was infested with maggots that swarmed from underneath. Once the skin peeled off, though, flies soon joined the maggots. They covered the exposed wounds in such number that the child found himself in the endless task of gently picking them off one by one so as to cause the least amount of pain to his mother.
Do you know that Tim Allen turned down the pilot of Turner and Hooch?
Is that
and
right?
Ted Poets Society. They were going to make that,
Thank
like, literally
God.
television shows.
Yeah.
And he turned that down to make fucking Home Improvement.
Oh, well, he actually chose right with Home Improvement. And Turner and Hooch, underrated Tom Hanks classic.
Yeah. Well, it's a dog. It's a cop.
I mean, it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
of course, that's Hooch.
But from what the boy later said, his mother never really complained about the pain or the obvious itch.
The ultimate
Itch.
martyr move. Honestly, it does
Yeah.
feel like what my mom would do. Be like, oh, don't worry about me. There's nothing wrong. Oh, yes, the bugs of the dead have been attracted to a living being. Yeah, but don't even think about taking care of me.
Yes,
Oh, you go
indeed.
live your life.
Instead, all she would say was, "I'd like to eat a peach." Over
Oh.
and over and over again.
Do we have any peaches?
One of the relatives did travel and she found a peach
Good.
eventually. But this went on for a month before this woman finally died.
Oh, mama.
However, it's probable that this woman didn't just die from her wounds or from infection. Most likely, she joined the ranks of short-lived survivors who died horrible deaths in the weeks and months after the initial blasts by way of radiation sickness. Now, in 1950, a Japanese survey estimated that a combined 368,259 people had survived the atomic blasts. 18 had survived both. These survivors came to be known by the derogatory term of hibakusha, meaning survivor or exposed one.
Derogatory
Yeah,
term.
why is that bad?
I feel like that means you made it.
Well, it was derogatory in its context. If one was a hibakusha, they would live as pariahs in Japanese society for the rest of their lives because many people in the rest of the country erroneously believed that radiation exposure and therefore radiation sickness could be contagious.
Interesting.
And lifelong.
I did not know that. That's very, very interesting.
These people were believed by some to be permanently radioactive, and as a result, they couldn't get jobs, and they were forbidden from marrying into certain families. In the Hiroshima in Their Own Words documentary, a guy talks about it, how, he would hide it from everybody. He would hide his scars. He met a nice girl, and then the family found out, they started asking him questions. Where are you from? And eventually he had to say Hiroshima. And the second he said Hiroshima, they said, exposed one, get out of here. You can't marry our daughter. And that happened again and again and again to these people for their entire lives.
It also sounds like an internalized. It does, and it does sound like it's an internalized thing of the shame involved in quote unquote losing the war, and kind of we brought this amongst ourselves. There is that vibe, right? Because the people would take the failures of the government onto themselves because they identified so hard with their own culture, as they would. So it is interesting to see that where just even the compartmentalized shame. within their communities to deny the memory, to get away from the memory.
We could use a little bit more shame in this culture, but not that much.
We just need
Not that much.
We need like a dollop of shame.
Yeah.
But we need it in different places. We need to take we have too much shame on sex. We need to take that off and just sprinkle it around to other places.
Back into violence. And these like politicians, again, they should be shamed every month to remember. Each one should be paraded out in diapers, chained ankle to ankle, just so we can tell them, remember, this is your place. You're a bunch of little servants who are supposed to do what we tell you to do.
You throw the rotten food at them.
They should be scared of us.
Yeah, we should rename congressmen Shit Kids.
That would be
Shit
incredible.
Kids. There we go.
Also a great band.
Yeah,
Shit Kid.
absolutely, sure.
Well, in addition to fearing the exposed ones for false reasons, there was the very real fact that any of these people could suddenly drop dead from all manner of cancers. And as we'll cover later, any of them could be taken off their jobs at a moment's notice to be studied by Americans who found the after effects of the nuclear bomb to be absolutely fascinating.
Well, because you know what, we'll get into all the granular details there. It's thick. It's very
They didn't get any
complex.
superpowers. It seems like it was really bad.
Nope, no Incredible Hulks here.
No.
Or Ant-Man or a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. Now, as far as the dead went, recent estimates put the final death toll at a far higher number than what was touted by General Leslie Groves in the immediate aftermath of the bombings. It was estimated that 140,000 people were dead by the end of 1945, and within 5 years, 200,000 were dead.
See, that bomb gives you extra for your buck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, more bang for your buck indeed.
When it came to Hiroshima, 54% of their population had died as a result of the little boy bomb.
Also, remember, the estimates are based off the concept that they thought that these bombs were just going to kill everybody clean.
Yeah.
And they were just going to just show up. It was going to explode everybody. They were all going to burst into dust, and we wouldn't even have to clean anything up. We would just go and see this cleared land and be so happy that we did it. And we just have the number. We just say, like, that's it.
Well, eventually we did develop that, though. It's called the neutron bomb.
Wow.
Nice.
Man, ain't nothing we can't do.
That's right, Johnny Neutron.
In the days and weeks after the bombing, 71% of Hiroshima's population and 69% of Nagasaki.
No, Henry.
No.
This is not that kind of 69. This is bad 69.
69% of Nagasaki and 71% of Hiroshima experienced to some degree what was first called atom bomb illness, but soon came to be known as radiation sickness. To put into perspective just how much radiation was created by Little Boy and Fat Man, the nuclear incident at Chernobyl created a radiation exposure that peaked at 500 rads.
And that actually converts to 1,500 groovies.
Wow, that is crazy.
And 3,000 radicals.
Indeed, that is a big bomb.
Actually, that's what rads is short for, is radicals.
Yeah, sure.
That's fun.
Groovies is just when you try to talk to hip guys.
Yes, groove indeed. I've heard it's in the heart.
It is. It's actually a serious condition for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know.
By comparison, the in-air doses of gamma rays from the uranium bomb at Ground Zero in Hiroshima, that was over 10,000 rads.
I mean, you're just saying numbers here, buddy. I don't know how to quantify that.
A lot of gunk.
Yeah.
A lot of gunk?
Okay, think about how deadly Chernobyl was. Like, they talk about the elephant foot. They talk about how dangerous Chernobyl was. That's 500.
Okay.
Hiroshima, that's 10,000.
Yeah.
It's a much larger number.
It's a larger number.
It's bigger. It's more groovies than the last one.
Worst thing about having an elephant foot is it never forgets.
Never does.
Never forgets. But
Always
what,
remembers the horrors of Chernobyl.
but what would a foot need to forget?
Oh, just where to go.
Yeah, if I was a foot, I wouldn't remember every single time I stepped on dog poop.
Oh, forget it.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Well, Nagasaki was even worse. That was 25,100 rads.
That's a higher number than the ones before.
It's almost not groovy at all.
Yeah.
Wow. All the science people are just mad.
Yeah.
Mad at us.
Well, no, it just means it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Each rad increases the chances of radiation sickness and increases how bad it's going to get. And I'm about to get into the worst of how bad it gets. As a result, cases of serious radiation sickness reached 3 miles from Ground Zero. Now, those who didn't die in the blast or soon after the blast seemed to improve in the days afterwards, giving the doctors a little bit of hope that maybe the worst was over. But within a week, radiation sickness began to take hold, as those who were severely exposed began to fall apart from the inside out.
Oh, I don't like that.
Because they really thought that it would take a long time to die from radiation
The Manhattan
exposure.
Project scientists.
Yes, they thought that.
Why would they think that?
Well, it's because every other example we've had of radiation exposure showed someone that you got basically a little bits at a time, and they thought that eventually you would kind of grow, you get sick. You got Madame Curie, right, was an example of
Died
it.
at 64.
Died at 64,
Okay.
but younger than she should have. But like the idea is that like she still like had a life, and they kind of thought that this would be that they would hold true no matter what. That you kind of would get these things. They were wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in Florida. They're paving the highways now with radioactive materials, so we'll see what happens.
God, another reason to not go.
Well, I mean, everyone's going to be dead soon.
Well, radiation sickness usually began with hair falling out in large clumps. Bleeding from the mouth, gums, throat, rectum, and urinary tract soon followed. You're literally bleeding out of your dick.
Oh, gosh.
And that was in addition to nausea and loss of appetite. Then came...
Yeah, I could see the loss of appetite.
Yeah.
I mean, just because of the mirror.
Just the whole thing is pretty not appetizing. Yeah.
Then came the bloody vomit and diarrhea as the victim's body began to seriously hemorrhage. So terrified were people of radiation sickness that many survivors woke up every morning and they tugged on their hair to see if they were the next to die of a condition that was, at the time, barely understood but greatly feared. As we now know, radiation sickness affects the body by causing rapid cell division, but the radiation itself temporarily suppresses the action. It's delayed. And once that wears off, internal tissues and organs rapidly begin to collapse into an unrecognizable bloody mess.
Yeah, it's like what the machine from The Fly does, but it does it like inside of your body over and over again.
Yeah, you got to make sure no fly sneaks in there.
No.
The radiation causes massive tissue death, massive hemorrhage, and massive infection. This caused one doctor to compare the radiation death sicknesses to the Black Death of the 1300s in terms of the sheer number of deaths and the carnage that came with them.
I got a really good email this morning as I was researching that I thought was real. It was this guy. He was great. But he was basically saying, imagine just the spookiness of radioactive material in general. It is rocks that come from the earth that glow. They literally glow in dark. That you look at it and they dissemble any sort of matter that is in a circle around it. And so imagine that vaporized, just like spread across all this stuff. And all it does is turn everything into fucking soup.
Yep.
I don't like it.
When autopsies were performed on victims in Nagasaki, doctors found upon opening the bodies that the internal veins had been torn to shreds. And as far as the organs went, they were so badly destroyed that they had begun to decay even before the victim had themselves died.
Well,
the
that's not-
organs died first.
Okay.
God.
You don't want that.
Quitting.
You want to time it. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
It was millennials. The organs were made of millennials. Have you heard millennials have ruined the having an internal organs business? another casualty. Millennial culture. We're the greatest generation.
Well, as a result, when the bodies were cremated, they gave off a strange smell. Most assumed that it was because of the radiation. But as those experienced in cremation pointed out at the time, it was in fact because the bodies being burned were simultaneously in two different stages of decay.
See, a lot of times what I found is
Wow.
that if you don't know what that flavor is, it's fish sauce.
Oh, it could be. That's common. That is common. But I don't know if that's really the case here.
No.
I'm surprised they actually went the burning route. I don't know what the safest way is.
That
To
That
dispose
is
of
technically still the
That's it?
safest way, yeah.
Yeah, that's the safest way. And it's also the only way that, I mean, they're not going to dig. You know, there's
Right.
no other way to get rid of these bodies. And they also
It's a lot.
know that, you know, the more bodies you have, the more disease you have. You
Right.
got to if you have a bunch of bodies, you got to get rid of them fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy, every Sunday. I know. I got a bunch of bodies. Oh, God damn it.
It's kind of nice because it's like that's kind of me and Kissel's bonding time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I can go, I help him with his pyramid of bodies. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're not because I can't ask questions about that.
Yeah.
I can ask questions about him.
Yeah,
And I can get
exactly.
to know him more. And I find out
Exactly.
stuff like, he loves the color orange.
Wow.
I don't hate it. Green is my favorite color, but orange is fine.
This is part of our, and then I was just like, is this your fucking look-alike of your mother?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what I
I
mean?
would never
It was
do
just a
that to
stack
my
of 'em.
mother. I just want her near me.
full of holes.
Yeah.
By the 8-week mark, though, deaths by acute radiation poisoning began to cease, although the long-term effects carried on for decades. Leukemia cases began 2 years after and peaked at 8 years after. But every survivor had a far higher chance than the average person of all manner of cancers for the rest of their lives.
My conspiracy theory little thought in my own head is I thought that maybe that they thought that these diseases would, because they thought they were long-term things that would slowly come about. So I figured in my mind that maybe they thought, well, once they
the Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project people, guys, that like at some point we'll start to see this information come out, but it'll be decades after the fact when they'll have written all these exposés. We won't have to deal with it till later on. We'll all be dead by the time they're talking about the actual like repercussions of these bombings. But it turned out it was day 3.
Yeah. Now, as far as what the people behind the Manhattan Project knew about the possible side effects of the bomb, the dangers of radiation in at least a lab setting have been well documented since the 1920s. As we said, Marie Curie, like they knew that her journals were still radioactive.
And they can make you sick. And they'll make you sick. Being around them, it makes you sick.
Yeah, if you're around them for a long time. Or if you're exposed to, like Marie Curie died many years later because of how many x-rays she was exposed to during World War I.
I also got some good thing on the radium. You know, it's still not good to just be touching radium.
No, but you got to ingest it.
But you shouldn't do any of it. I would say let radium, use a glove.
Use a glove. In the Manhattan Project itself, all laboratories monitored radiation exposure constantly, and they had precise handling procedures for nuclear material to prevent long-term exposure, like Marie Curie. Nobody, however, had seen what acute radiation poisoning might do to a large population.
Like, what if we turn it into a purified gas that just goes into you? Because also, radiation just goes through all of your cells. Like, it doesn't have to go, like, especially in that form, like, it's just everywhere, and it just zips right through your body back and forth as the wind blows it back and forth.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The wind carries radiation everywhere. That's why after Chernobyl, there were so many cases of cancer in a vast, large
huge
radius.
circle.
Yeah, that's what the biggest danger of a nuclear meltdown actually is that it's not the immediate surrounding area.
It's everywhere else.
It's where the wind takes the radioactivity.
You want to get some big fans, put them around, just have them facing out.
Yeah, to the White House.
Yeah.
This guy, it's kind of crazy because Robert Oppenheimer, even he said after all of this, he made a little like when the bomb drops and all kind of, and there was like, you know, obviously celebrating for a couple of days, and then everyone's like, what did we just do? Robert Oppenheimer said that he thought that theoretically his statement that the radiation would have basically not have made it to the ground. Yeah. He thought that it would have dissipated before it got to everybody, and he was also wrong.
Yes, he was. And I think that
or purposefully lying.
Yeah. Well, I think they called it fallout after the fact.
It's false.
Yeah. Well, the scientists of the Manhattan Project, I think they were certainly smart enough to speculate. The problem was that their scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think that they should.
Whoa!
Yep.
Nice. You can't handle the truth.
Finds away.
Oh my God, Jeff Goldblum.
So I could be anybody.
You really are super talented. Jurassic Park. You're going to want to check out that movie. That's a good one. That came out in 92 or 94. So that's a good one. That's only almost 20 years ago.
No, it's only 8 years old.
Yeah, that's actually that's far more than 20 years ago. That's 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Holy fucking shit.
Now, by late August 1945, about 3 weeks after the bomb dropped, international media outlets began picking up stories from the Japanese press about a mysterious and deadly illness that had no doubt been caused by the bombs. General Leslie Groves, however, went into damage control mode immediately and dismissed the stories as Japanese propaganda meant to garner sympathy.
See? That's all you got to do.
That's all you got to do.
No? How about not?
But General Leslie Groves, I think in many ways, it's also personal. Because Robert Oppenheimer also went in hard right afterwards to say, like, you know, we're trying to kind of validate, figure these things out. I think General Leslie Groves, in many ways, yes, he was trying to save his ass and he was trying to save, like, the view of the Manhattan Project to history. But I also think that there was a great sense of guilt from what I was reading about him.
And denial.
And he did not They did not know that when you literally use the building blocks of the universe itself, that it might not be good. It might be a Pandora's box.
Maybe they allowed themselves to be willfully ignorant on it. Because they had to know something was going to go wrong.
Oh, yeah. You just didn't, they just thought maybe just big explosion.
Yeah, well, the Grove said the only reason why the death toll kept rising was because they were finding more bodies.
Well, that makes sense. And technically, Leslie, that doesn't make it better. Does it?
Well, he said during that, but that was happening during the rescue effort.
I think that those bodies shouldn't count, and they should only be one day of counting bodies.
Yeah. What if we named one of the bombs Mulligan?
Now, Groves willfully ignored what he was being told about what was happening in both cities because soldiers showed up in Nagasaki pretty soon after the bomb dropped. And that's the thing.
U.S. soldiers?
Yes.
Probably not safe for them either, to be honest.
But that also tells you how little they understood it because they're
Right.
sending U.S. soldiers in there to check it out. If they thought it was that dangerous, they wouldn't have done that.
That's why I do think that there is a level of ignorance about what the fuck they just did.
Yes.
I don't think that they just did not fully appreciate that we're going to melt people here.
No, they didn't think about it hard enough.
No.
Like they only thought about the bomb. They only
They're trying to end the war.
Yeah, they only thought about making the bomb, or they're trying to fucking beat the Germans.
Yeah.
And they're only thinking about making the bomb, all the problems about dropping the bomb. They're not putting any thought into what the bomb's actually going to do afterwards.
That's the thing with scientists, man. Very focused, but if you get them off track, it's just like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
It's very scary. And it turns out a lot of their stuff, because there's the problem. So once you get them off track, you find out everything they're doing is going to irrevocably change history. It's going to make a bunch of people turn into like sock puppets and shit. And you're like, why don't we stop talking? Why don't we just, I don't want to know anymore.
Try to pivot, but there's nothing to pivot to.
No. Well, furthermore, General Leslie Groves became even more aware of the consequences of acute radiation poisoning after an incident that occurred on American soil with a little something called the Demon Core.
And there was nothing cute about it.
No,
but
it's called the Demon Core. I don't think it sounds very cute.
I like the Demon Core because I think the Demon Core...
They would hang you upside down and just play your butthole like it was a goddamn cornhole.
Dude, no, the Demon Core is misunderstood.
I don't know if they... Demon Core... I've been playing Diablo 4, dude. I know what these fucking demons can do.
No, man.
And if you don't upgrade, they will kill you.
The Demon Core was just honestly being blamed for being itself.
Now, if you'll remember from episode 5, Little Boy and Fat Man were the only two atomic bombs in existence when they dropped. So Los Alamos was hard at work on a third just in case America wanted to drop another on Japan. And that's a hard want. That's not a need.
Oh, yeah, because they just said, the one is, I forget what the bill was that Truman said, where basically right after they bombed, they were trying to figure out, well, how do we stop this, blah, blah, blah. And Truman's like, no, Manhattan Project continues as it was before. So we're just keeping pumping shit out.
The plutonium core for bomb number 3, however, soon developed a reputation for injuring or killing the people who worked on it.
You see, it was supposed to be a bomb, and it was supposed to live this life and have this fun thing, and it never got to.
It's really sad. The story of the bomb that never was.
It's Rudy of the atomic bombs.
Yes,
it's just him being like, and this is his one shot. He finally got in the game a little bit, but just kill. Yeah, he killed 2 scientists, but that was him. That's his version of playing the one play for the Notre Dame.
Well, in the first of 2 serious accidents, a scientist was performing experiments on the core when he mishandled a component.
Man, it sounds so fucking frightening. Because again, it's also real loose too.
Yeah.
Because the core, that's one of those things I had to like figure out how to wrap my brain around because I couldn't really understand when they talk about piles and cores and like, what does this even mean?
Bricks.
And bricks.
Because he dropped a brick.
Yeah, and then I realized, it's just that.
Piles.
It's just a pile. Like they put it like in a metal circle, like the plutonium in a metal circle, and then they build these bricks of stuff around it that are supposed to make all the neutrons within it bounce around, right? You basically make it like an oven with the plutonium in the center of it. But I just didn't understand. I thought it would be way more technical than that. But it's literally just like it's a brick made out of extremely technical metals that he put together.
Right.
But all you have to do is fucking whoopsie, and things go fucking critical.
You don't want your last words to be go.
That is going to be my last word.
Oh, isn't that something?
It'll be come in my pants.
I think my last words are going to be, whoop.
That's not a word.
Kissel, no!
No, he'll be begging me, kill me, please kill me now. I'm like, I can't, man. I'll go to jail, dude.
Well, the component fell into the core, caused a chain reaction, and bathed the scientist in radiation.
Oh, good.
The scientist lived in the immediate, but died decades later of leukemia. Now, that's not too bad. But a second scientist, exposed a year later, he would not be so lucky.
Oh yeah.
They gotta tighten up the strings here. You gotta make sure that this stop dropping all this stuff.
His name, but then his nickname was like Flathead.
Oh, he'll do it.
His nickname was Flathead, and that was deserved. He had that nickname for a reason. Now, presumably, since a third nuclear bomb hadn't been necessary, this plutonium core remained an experimental object because there were bigger and better bombs on the horizon.
Oh.
So the Demon Core kept changing hands as the experiments continued. And almost a year after Hiroshima, a scientist named Louis Slotin, who'd been working on the core, was in the process of handing over responsibility to another scientist.
Demons can do a lot, but you know what? When I think of catching a football or holding on to atomic energy or materials, they drop stuff.
Yeah.
Well, because the hands are actually not good for grip. I mean, they're good for gripping, but you know what? I think demons also get distracted very easily.
Yeah, again, you're hung up on the demons.
I think of the demon Etrigan, and he wielded a sword many a time to great effect.
Yeah,
Although
I
he
was a demon.
But what if you
I
showed-
literally
Yeah, but
played a
what-
demon for fucking
Well, then I know
years on a
this.
television
Then I
show.
know that.
I had hands.
Then I know that.
Yeah, but
Then I
didn't
know
you?
that.
But didn't you
You would
drop
be-
stuff all the time?
You would
Yeah,
drop
'cause I
stuff
was
all
a
the time, and you were
goofy
pissed on
character.
it. You were
It
an
was
urinal.
it's like a funny character,
But what
like a
I'm saying
Homer
is-
Simpson like idiot.
You were also distracted by a big pair of tits.
Oh,
so
yes.
if you're holding a brick
Yeah,
of
'cause I was
atomic
looking down.
materials, and then very good. But then you'd be like, "Well, I'm supposed to be doing this," and then you see tits. You're going to drop it because you're a demon.
Yeah, but there was no tits here. It's scientists at this time. There were not a lot of tits in science.
We don't know that.
And if I remember from Pretty Face, most of the demons were not too bright.
No, and all of them were just ugly men.
So, point proven, actually.
Now, for the whole time Slotin had been performing experiments on the Demon Core, he'd arrogantly used a flathead screwdriver during a step that required absolute precision.
This guy's a fucking asshole
Yeah,
in his
he's an
way.
asshole.
Because what he did was, you remember in Tommy Boy when he gets mad at the woman because you find out blah 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 the end of the movie where
Don't spoil it.
Well, she says that she doesn't keep a filing cabinet and she just does her own specific way. That's this guy in hell, where he just was like, no, I do it this way, where it was two halves of non-critical material or pre-critical material
Pre-critical, yeah.
that he would layer between each other, and before they could completely seal, right, because they'd have to be together and the two halves would have to seal to create a critical reaction, he just stuck a fucking screwdriver in between,
Right.
and then that's what he'd use, and they'll all be like, hey, Louis, you have this nickname for some fucking reason, but please don't do this anymore. And he's like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair to her, she was sabotaged by that man having sex with his mother.
I know.
So
Well, Slotin, he wore cowboy boots and blue jeans in the
Yeah,
laboratory.
he did things a little different around here.
He saw himself as a bit of a maverick. And I think he used the screwdriver as some sort of affectation to separate himself from all these fucking nerds.
Yeah.
oh, good, yeah.
But as it went, nerds like Enrico Fermi were warning him that if he continued using a flathead screwdriver during a complicated nuclear experiment, he'd be dead within a year.
Also, or you're going to blow up whatever fucking city this thing's in the center of.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be good. This is where you need to respect the nerd. You are in the nerd land.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're not on the ranch where
Yes.
you think you might have an upper hand.
Yeah, I'm not looking for the best chicken wing.
No,
I'm
no.
asking for nuclear experiment advice.
This is where the nerd shines.
Yeah, Richard Feynman said the technique was, quote, tickling the dragon's tail. Because one slip up could set off a nuclear chain reaction that would literally blow up in Slotin's face.
Yeah, it would ruin a chunk of America.
You know the dragons breathe fire. Do they fart fire?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I
no.
think there's some sort of gland in their
Is it
throat
glandular?
it's a
that
gland.
creates.
According to the Dungeons and Dragons, it's a gland.
It is a
gland.
gland. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Good to know.
But predictably, that's exactly what happened.
Ah.
Right at the end of Slotin's time with the Demon Core. As he was showing his replacement how the experiment was done, Slotin's screwdriver slipped a fraction of an inch, which set off the nuclear chain reaction that he'd been warned against for ever so long.
Can you imagine that you do that? Because then the halves slap, it just starts glowing.
Oh,
like this
man.
thing just starts blowing up with blue light.
Well, lunchtime, it turns out, you gotta go.
Oh, it wasn't a slow. It was a it was a big flash.
But then he had to
Shit.
knock it off the top. He literally had to use his bare hand to flip the fucking thing off the top of it.
yeah.
It's kind of what they were creating in Happy Death Day 2. If you had a chance to watch that,
yes.
which I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love both of those.
It bathed Slotin with a lethal dose of 1,000 rads of
Wow.
gamma radiation.
Far out.
Wow, and that was the invention of hypercolor. Fantastic shirts from the 90s. If you had tits and you were a man, they let you know.
Wow, the sad, literally upside down number 3 I created with one of those thermal color shirts with my little boy tits, ruined that shirt for me.
I
It
think
ruined
that, that was one of the one of the flaws in the plan.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It was for delicious woman's breasts.
I guess.
Not for a little fat
It
boy's
was marketed to boys, though.
Yeah, it was. And the shitty thing was that the replacement also got just a little bit of the radiation. Not a whole lot, but he got a little bit. But Slotin died 9 days later with his guts turned into a slurry of blood and decayed tissue, like so many in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Well, they don't know. They said that at this time, this was the only real evidence they had of acute radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until after the bombs had already been dropped when they were and then they're like, oh, wow. Oh, we didn't know it does this fucking shit.
I mean, technically, he kind of donated his life to science.
He
didn't
did.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he said. The comment, his last word, did the words in the laboratories, he did it. He's like, well, that's done. That's literally like what he said at the end of it.
Those are actually good last words.
It was also scary too, right? Because you don't feel anything at first. You know now you're dead.
Oh,
you're dead, dead. But you don't know until days later, and it ain't pretty.
I would try to jump on walls to see if I could stick.
You
doesn't
do.
happen.
It's because of the sloughing.
Oh, that's not a good reason to stick.
Well, Leslie Groves, he knew the details of the Demon Core incident because he was still in charge of the Manhattan Project.
We still haven't said on the Demon Core that even though it was told it couldn't be a bomb, it could still kill people.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Leslie Groves was maintaining a year after the bombings that from what doctors told him, radiation sickness was a, quote, pleasant way to die.
No.
Well, compared to what being Gaddafi,
There's
having
a
a
company.
gun shoved up your ass, so
Yeah,
I guess
sure.
it's nicer than that.
The only thing I will say, it's like mostly more pleasant than is like, you ever been in a scenario when your head has been kind of like lodged in a sort of like a desert scenario, like kind of crevasse, like between two rocks, and then your butthole because maybe you have been gaped or you're on vacation.
Sure, well, that's what you would do.
Your wife
vacation.
your wife says, we're here at our favorite river spot. I peg you here.
Yes.
And we all know this is what happens. And then let's just say she left a bunch of honey in there and the whole thing, and a bunch of ants all crawled up inside you, and then and they were living inside you, and then they were slowly but surely eating their way out from your esophagus, like out through your mouth. Stuff like it's definitely more pleasant than that.
Now, naturally, the horrific deaths in Hiroshima and Nagasaki weren't something that the United States government wanted to be public knowledge because it destroyed the moral high ground that we've been flaunting since the end of the war, and especially since the end of the European theater.
But we understood at the time, too, is that I guess we're abandoning the moral high ground and we are just showing the world that we can blow you the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this is a different time for America. I think they were teaching newborns how to smoke because they thought it was going to be really good for lung growth.
No, it was.
So, we didn't know a lot of stuff back then.
Well, at this time, like, we had respect. And but eventually we wanted respect and fear. And we knew that, and that's the thing, is that once Hiroshima came out, once all this came out, respect went away and all we were left with was fear.
Yep.
And isn't that what Jason Voorhees has been looking for this entire
whole
time?
See, it was one thing to have a weapon that made a big boom to scare the Soviets. The international community, they could wrap their heads around that. But it was something else altogether to create a full-blown hell on earth in two highly populated cities, enemies or not. So Leslie Groves deflected any conversation about the after effects of the bombings by emphasizing the bad shit Japan had done during the war.
Which is real and totally viable.
Absolutely real. Like, Unit 731, the rape of Nanking, the
Pearl Harbor, everything.
Yeah.
They did a lot of fucked up shit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Leslie Groves, for America, focused on Pearl Harbor. He focused on the innocent civilians that had been killed in the process. Speaking to the New York Times, Groves said that if Japan didn't like the way we ended the war, they should remember who started it.
You know,
Okay,
there
you
is
go.
that little bit. There's a tiny bit. But again, if it had just stopped in Hiroshima. If it had
But no, they never would have dropped it at all.
I'm just
I
saying.
would go with no drop E.
At the
but
very
then
li-
someone's going to drop it.
I'm not saying that it was good or I'm just saying that I said last episode, I can wrap my head around the one. It's the follow-up that changed really the entire vibe of
Well,
the
I
room.
think that's just because they named it Fat Man and you're offended.
No, because I'm both. I'm Fat Man and Little Boy.
Oh.
But that's the thing, is that I can't wrap my head around Hiroshima because they knew for a fact that they didn't need to drop it, and they knew that they were killing tens of thousands, if not
They
hundreds of
wanted to,
thousands of
Marcus.
civilians.
No, they wanted to.
Well,
Crazy.
let's just say they should have done some things different.
Wow, Kissel.
Yes,
Wow,
very
wow. Hot take from
brave
Kissel.
stance.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Brave. Do things different.
Complicated.
Yeah.
Rise from your grave.
Now, the American government had put General Douglas MacArthur in charge of overseeing the American occupation of Japan, and MacArthur was given the directive that he could exercise his authority as he deemed proper to carry out his mission.
That's good. You want to give generals just unbelievable amounts of power for them to do anything they want.
Thankfully, MacArthur mostly ruled fairly and without cruelty. He actually instituted a lot of good things. He gave women the right to vote. He changed up their whole government. He kind of tried to make Japan like a mini America. But, I mean, the ultimate motive was to turn Japan into an American ally against the Soviets in the upcoming Cold War.
And it worked.
And it worked.
It definitely worked.
But there were some solid consequences. But no matter the motivation, MacArthur's men, for the most part, treated the Japanese with respect. They briefed them on Japanese courtesy, they briefed them on language, geography, culture. This became an actually successful hearts and minds mission, to the point where Japanese children became enamored by American troops who gave them candy. They taught them simple English words like hello and thank you and all that type of shit.
Yeah, it's like, when you get kidnapped and sometimes they're nice to you.
Yeah, that's the idea.
It's like, wow, today I'm not getting completely destroyed. So thanks for the Salisbury steak.
That's called marriage.
Yeah, that is.
But even though many of these interactions with American troops were pleasant, the speed at which America was rebuilding Japan resulted in serious infractions that any culture would find distasteful.
Oh, yeah, because now you're getting a taste of our true American ingenuity.
Well, ingenuity, our our
Stick-to-itiveness.
not even stick-to-itiveness, I guess a little bit of our gumption.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh,
Yeah,
gumption.
Needing to build an airfield in Nagasaki in an area nicknamed Atomic Field, soldiers used bulldozers to clear the ruins. Those ruins, however, were still filled with thousands of dead bodies and skeletons. In their rush to build the field, the bulldozer operators treated the bones of the dead the same as the sand, soil, and rubble. That mixture was used in broken roads in Nagasaki, which are presumably still in use today.
Wow.
And I think that's a good metaphor for marriage.
It really is.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you got to, in order to build something new, you got to just bulldoze through all the bad shit of the past and just build something on top of
Turn it into a slurry
Yeah.
you can build on
Wow.
top of.
Yeah.
But then you also just see what seems to be seashells in the walls. That is the memories of the fights from the past.
Yeah.
Much as you see in Edinburgh, because half of their walls are just fucking human bones.
It's
Ah.
very interesting.
But that's the thing, is that's only if you obsess on things. That's what it is, that you don't want to obsess on the small things of the past. You just want to look at the good things that you built.
That's a nice wall.
Wow.
That's what you say. Instead of, oh, that wall
That's
is littered
good.
with the
Wow.
broken bones of my ancestors
Yeah.
and all these other things. I could say, oh, nice wall.
I built
That's
something.
great.
I built something good from all the bad.
Yes, I think that's really smart.
That's
Yeah.
well.
And we
I can
built- and
see
we
people
built-
getting married as we speak. Wow. What a,
Yeah, they're
what a
running to the
ringing
chapel.
endorsement.
Yeah, and we built it together. So
did.
all you out there, be a bulldozer of love.
Be it.
Yeah, but if you build it together, then neither should whatever. Then no one gets any credit.
Single.
Well, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they had far larger problems than what they were going to do with the dead. See, since so many kids had been taken out of the cities to avoid the fire bombings, mercifully missing the atomic bomb, thousands returned to the cities as so-called atomic bomb orphans, or Gimbaku Koji. These children, or Gimbaku Koji, I have no idea.
I don't know.
These children were left to fend for themselves, and many became desperate. In one case, a boy drank water from flower vases in cemeteries in order to survive.
He would go on to form the Japanese version of The Cure.
Oh, well, isn't that
That's the most goth thing you can do.
Isn't that nice?
Others had to leave their pitiful shelters and cross former playgrounds that had since been used as mass cremation sites just to retrieve clean drinking water. And as a result, they walked on the ashes of human remains and bone fragments day after day in the playgrounds that they used to play in.
It sounds symbolic, but it's not.
No.
Sad. It's very sad.
But as it almost always goes in times of chaos and desperation, some took great advantage of these orphan children, and none were more cruel with their exploitation than the Japanese mafia, aka the Yakuza.
Oh, I've played them in video games before.
Yeah.
There's also a new sort of GTA style game where you get to play the Yakuza.
It's fun.
So I wonder if they'll have this in there.
I don't know if they will, using them taking advantage of the orphans of
What
atomic
a weird
power.
side quest.
Yeah.
What a strange side mission. I don't like it.
Yeah, the pedophilic sex slavery side quest.
Yeah, it's far, far too realistic.
Yeah, I don't like this.
No, I'm good. I'm
this
good.
is too easy.
Yeah.
Now, the Yakuza had been largely inactive during the war because so many of them had been conscripted into the Imperial Army. But once the war was over, the Yakuza quickly reformed and created a thriving black market. In addition, members of the Yakuza also found themselves in positions of power. See, in rebuilding the Japanese government following the war, General MacArthur attempted to weed out most of the ultra-nationalist Japanese citizens from civil service. This was the same thing that we did in Germany with a policy called denazification.
But we did it on our side vaguely, but we also had the other side in Russia that were using active Nazis to prop up the governments in all of these places. And we did it too. We did do it. We brought in Nazis and we let them run the show half the time because...
Well, with denazification, we tried to take all the Nazis out. We did try it at first, but then we found like, oh shit, everyone's a Nazi and nobody is here to run the government. No one knows how anything works. So they had no choice but to put the Nazis back in power if they wanted Germany to survive in any way whatsoever.
See, that's the type of shit I actually find more reprehensible than a lot of some other shit, where it's like, that's one of those things where we did just kind of let them operate fucking for a while.
There's only so many Germans there.
No,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, there's only so many Germans.
You can take the Nazi. You can take the German. Wait, you can take the German
Let
out
me
of.
see him. Let me see
No,
how
you
he
can
works
take
it
the
out.
Nazi
Let me
out
see
of a German, but you can't take the German out of a Nazi. No, you can.
Wow, you're just damning yourself. You're damning your entire family.
Because a lot of Nazis left Germany and went to all
lots of-
sorts of places and were still Nazis.
They did.
Yeah, you could go anywhere and be a Nazi. Even
Just an
now,
idea.
even
Just
modern
an
America.
idea. Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Please.
Yeah. But you can't have like a 10-year-old boy running the police department in Dusseldorf.
Oh, that's cool though.
I mean, that's
Come
kind of
on,
adorable.
Kid captain.
Kid captain. All the guns are nothing but snickerdoodle ball.
Candy's free and homework's illegal.
Oh, I love this new kid captain.
But just as it was in Germany, MacArthur soon found that after he removed these ultranationalists, there was nobody left to keep the peace because a lot of these ultranationalists had been, unsurprisingly, cops. As a consequence,
Yeah.
there was little to... Yeah, look at the ultranationalists we have in America.
Yep.
A lot of cops.
There are some cops in there, aren't there?
I've seen some guys at the grocery store.
Yeah.
As a consequence, there was little to no police presence in all of Japan. So the Yakuza filled the gap. Because really, this is a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yes.
In one case in the city of Kobe, the Yakuza put down an uprising of formerly enslaved Koreans at the request of the mayor. This, of course, put the mayor in debt to the Yakuza. But nobody in the occupational government had any real interest in getting mixed up with Japan's increasingly powerful criminal underbelly.
Seems like the mayor got into some political issues there. I think he got in a little over his head.
I think so too. I think that a lot of times,
Yeah.
I feel like a mayor in post-atomic Japan was like pretty overwhelmed.
Well, a lot of Japan, it's kind of like Escape from New York. You
Yeah.
know, like there's just fucking there. It's all chaos, and then MacArthur comes in. It's just like, yep, anyone who's like super into Japan as a superior nation,
We don't want you
we
anymore.
don't want you. You can't be in there.
And now we have the Yakuza who's jumping in, and they are just straight up saying like, "Oh, this is our
Yeah.
time to make some money."
Yeah, and the Yakuza
also-
are straight up evil.
Yeah.
And we're about to get into just how evil the Yakuza could be.
It's an impossible request to
Yes.
be like, you're a Japanese citizen, hate your country.
Not
Yeah.
no. Not hate your country. Just don't treat your country as if it is a god.
Yeah, I
Like,
need
don't-
you to just be an American, but look like a Japanese person.
Yeah, but then it's like the person that did that just dropped 2 huge bombs on you and is requesting that you no longer.
It seems to be complex.
I think it might be complex.
It's far complex.
You know what? I think
very
it's complex.
Yeah, it's complex because Japan did,
Yeah.
after all, start the war. Well, on the negative side of the occupation, there was collaboration in both the sale of black market goods and heavy participation by the Americans in a massive sex slave trade that was created in the chaos of a ruined country that was still starving. By October of 1945, just a month after Japan's surrender, a group called the Recreation and Amusement Association had opened one of the largest brothels in the world using trafficked women posing as quasi-geishas, and American troops were regular customers. But when it came to exploitation, the Yakuza were most cruel with the children of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, who could disappear without anyone noticing or caring. Now, the orphan boys had relatively innocuous jobs. They would use shoe polish stalls as fronts to sell bootleg alcohol and heroin.
Yeah, and if that was just the only thing that was happening, there'd be part of me that'd be like, that's fun as hell. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, that's
orphans selling alcohol and heroin, hanging out, flipping coins, being like, "What are you looking for, hooch, mister?" Like, that's fun.
Just legalize it at that point. I think booze was probably a good thing.
Well, it's not
maybe needed.
It's not that booze was illegal. It's that booze wasn't really being manufactured in any specific way because all the factories were destroyed.
There's probably like not the first thing they wanted to do with the factories.
No. They had to get everything else back online.
Right.
Yeah. The girls, however, most between 8 and 11 years old, they were sold into sex slavery, either privately or in red light districts all over Japan. More often than not, after the girls were used up, to put it crudely, they would disappear, either killed or turned back out to the streets to starve.
Man, this is a very scary time period.
Yeah. Those orphans who weren't picked up by the Yakuza, however, starved to death by the thousands once winter came. Many died with stones in their mouths because presumably having something to suck upon was somewhat soothing.
And the Yakuza had total control over the food deliveries, and they would decide who got what, and then they would like basically take all the rations, and then they would sequester them, and they would make people line up, and then you have to buy them from them, like
at a highly increased price.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, the United States certainly had a vested interest in rebuilding Japan's economy and infrastructure because they desperately needed as many allies in Asia as they could get, especially since China was obviously on its way to full-blown communism by this point. But when it came to treating the radiation-related illnesses caused by the bomb dropped by the occupying forces, they opted instead for scientific research.
This is why people get upset with scientists and doctors, because this is one of those things, because they arrived here to try to, at first they thought that they were coming to help, but then it turns out they were just trying to watch them melt in a controlled situation.
I mean, it's disgusting. We've been doing all those experiments on special needs people for a long time, and on the old orphans of an American streets.
Honestly,
experimentation being done on human beings.
And I know I was made in a lab.
I didn't
ask to be this perfect.
Yeah.
No, I know.
And
made
that's actually,
in a lab.
it's kind of been a burden for me. And then I didn't ask to be geoengineered.
You were kind of experimented on when it comes to heaps of pasta and how much can one family consume?
Yeah. And guess what? It's a nice.
It's a nice. How much pasta does it take to replace love and affection?
You know what? Up to a pound.
Yeah, I think a pound. I actually think 1 pound. Yeah, I agree with that. With a lot of parm.
With a lot of parm.
Yeah.
Well, these scientists, they weren't experimenting. They were just studying. They wanted to know the long-term effects of radiation on a large population. And in order to get clean data, they refrained from treating any and all illnesses suffered by the populations of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as a result of radiation. So in order to study these effects, an organization called the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission was founded in 1946 to study the effects of the atomic bomb in the long term, meaning their original test subjects were mostly children and young adults.
So we're talking about the bomb as a job creator now.
Oh, very much so.
There you go. Look at that.
But right before this, they had released a report that was actually fairly thorough, explaining the Manhattan Project to the United States of America. And they sent out this like long thing kind of explaining what atomic power was and what it does and what it's going to do. And it is interesting on what it left out, because it talks about basically it ends at Trinity. Mm-hmm. Like you see this big report come out and you're like, and then we did it. And it does not mention the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki afterwards, because this is up until then, because now they're trying to figure out like, okay, what the fuck did we just do?
I mean, there's so many, again, complicated, but from a science perspective, I mean, it's a huge achievement.
It is.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, now it's because then they'll say we're using the research to figure out how to build a more humane bomb.
Yeah. Of course they are.
That's what a tactical nuke is. A tactical nuke is the idea is like
humane.
Spread's just small. It's a small spread. That's why when we were in Europe and they were all just all like really being like, and this is what I remember seeing a headline that was like, why tactical nukes are actually okay for Europe. And you're like, I can't right now.
Well, at least once a year for the rest of their lives, these subjects participated in examinations that usually occurred under harsh fluorescent lights, and they were always forced to strip down naked so the scientists could study every aspect of possible ill effects. In the most humiliating of exams, some were forced to stand on stage in auditoriums full of doctors and scientists. In the case of the daughter of Reverend Tanimoto, the man we mentioned last episode who was forced to meet the co-pilot of the Enola Gay on live television,
God.
she went through this mortifying indignation at the age of 13.
I actually got a really interesting email about Reverend Tanimoto and after the fact, and that it actually helped him. He said apparently this was actually really good for him, meeting the pilot from the Enola Gay, helped him put a human face on it. And there was like a whole story where they kind of like came together and figured it actually was like a healing moment in his life.
When Leif Garrett met the person that he hit when he was driving drunk, and then the guy was in a wheelchair forever, but they met on VH1 and then Leif got to apologize finally.
Yes.
God, what was the line me and Carolina used to say to each other all the time? Because like it's something about like fucked up, bro, or I'm sorry, bro.
Fucked up, bro. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Something like that. Oh man,
Leif coming clean.
I forgive you. I forgive you.
I mean, I would be like, lift up my leg so I can kick you in the butt once.
Drinks on you.
Well, this
You're frozen. You're both frozen in a smile like at the end of a sitcom.
Well, after being shoved on stage in an auditorium full of doctors, and I know indignation isn't the right word there. It's bothering me. Mortifying indignation. It's not indignation.
I would say it's mortifying. Technically, it's, I know what you're saying.
Humiliation.
Desecration, humiliation.
Degradation.
Yeah.
Degradation.
Degradation. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you so very much.
I do know words.
Mr. ACT.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a 19, baby.
19.
26 in writing, 26 in reading, 13 in math, and I believe a 12 in science.
Very good. Wow, very nice. I got a 27. But that was...
Wow, it's still
Kurt
low.
Cobain committed suicide at 27.
No, 27 out of 32 is pretty good.
I didn't take the ACTs.
I believe
I didn't
it was
have
36.
to. I was in the IB program, so I didn't have to.
No, it was 32
Was it
because
32?
because I got one question away from perfect on reading comprehension.
Yeah, see, that's where I did well as well.
Yeah.
And just another completely valid bragging point.
Yes, indeed.
Especially once you're over 40.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And the kids don't have to take them anymore.
Really?
No.
No. Now
You
they
just got to be able to pay.
They
You
just
gotta-
like, they have to go in, they have to say like vibes. You know what I mean? They have to pass a vibe check, and then they have to go like, then they go to Zoom University, and then mostly they just go and they create destabilizing videos on the internet.
Yeah, that's right.
do with a lot of debt as well, unfortunately.
Well, the ABCC still exists to this day as the Radiation Effects Research Foundation, although such cruel examinations as those suffered in the 50s are long in the past.
I would hope so.
These days, they mostly study the children of Hiroshima and Nagasaki survivors in order to see the hereditary effects of radiation poisoning. It's now voluntary.
Come here, John. I just want to say, I just want to make sure how many eyes you have. Good, you still have two? Or
Two eyes,
Flippers? Looking for flippers?
No.
No flippers, huh? Throw them away. I want a flipper one.
I would assume it does go through the generations if
It
you
does.
take into account lead poisoning.
Oh, no,
being
and you
generational
take all of your shit inside of you. It's not good.
Yikes.
It involves your entire body.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the press went concerning Hiroshima and Nagasaki, General MacArthur was able to keep a lid on the worst effects for a fair amount of time, longer than you'd think. See, while the Japanese press were freer than they'd been under the imperial government when it came to censorship, they still weren't allowed to report any details about the after effects of the bombings. Likewise, foreign reporters had to submit all reports to occupation censors for approval. But with such a massive story involving so many people, the truth was bound to get out eventually. In the year after the bombing, 2 journalists almost got the stories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki out to the rest of the world, but both were stopped just short of publishing by the government.
Wow.
The man who finally got the word out, though, was a Pulitzer Prize winner in fiction named John Hersey, who not only brought the story of the bombings to the world, but revolutionized nonfiction writing with his report on Hiroshima. He was the man who was said to have created the new journalism. And the story he wrote on Hiroshima is considered by the New York Times in a list they did in 1999 as the best piece of journalism of the 20th century.
What's incredible because it was an extremely closely held secret. It was one of our, how do we put this? Later on, we discover many layers of kind of shame that America would experience, but this was a big one. Obviously, it was a very, very big one.
Now, in a poll conducted a week after the bombings, 85% of Americans approved of the use of the atomic bomb. Strangely enough, 5% didn't care. They had no opinion one way or another.
What happened?
There's always those people.
Oh, yes, 5% who literally was like, there was a world war?
That's weird.
There was 2?
Yeah, there were
This is the sequel?
there were stories of like people who lived in the Ozarks who like had no fucking clue what was going on.
No, tell me what got like,
That's the dream.
And he's still with the census, like, his voice still counts.
It does. Moonshine.
That's America.
Well, journalists thereafter repeated the government line that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were symbols for the birth of a new Japan, dedicated to peace, progress, and reconciliation with the rest of the world.
It did end old Japan. So I suppose the only other step is a new one.
Well, that perspective changed with John Hersey. Hersey had been a war correspondent embedded with Allied forces during the invasion of Sicily. In addition, he'd survived 4 plane crashes and had assisted in evacuating wounded soldiers in Guadalcanal.
Well,
Yeah,
he also
tell me when he's embedded with the enemy, okay?
yeah. But the thing is that he did believe, he saw that the World War II story that we were all getting was not quite as clean cut as what was really happening. Is that he went there and he realized, which is part of what this story, I think, is kind of symbolic of, is that this war was fucked up too.
Yeah.
And while this was supposedly the last, like, quote unquote, like, good one or whatever, like, but this
was the most fucked up war that ever existed.
It was fucked up what everybody had to go through.
And
everybody went through a lot of bullshit fighting this war.
Yeah.
And especially like all of the American soldiers that, they now have the veneer of being heroes at the time, but the shit they saw was wild. And then they weren't allowed to talk about it when they came back, because then that would you throw shame upon this quote unquote great thing that you did.
And the Americans didn't even see the worst shit. I mean,
We got in late.
The worst, they say that the worst place to be in the entire war was Poland.
Yeah.
Like Poland was absolutely, like, if you were in Poland during World War II, you were in one of the worst places in the entirety of human history, in the entire history of the world.
Yeah, I feel like, just Auschwitz being there. Like, Auschwitz, a place you can take a voluntary train to. It's like
Poland.
not a place I want to be.
There was a lot of Polish people that love those Nazis.
Yeah,
They
there
did.
were.
That's true.
It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, and that's part of what made it so much worse.
Yeah.
Well, having seen
Fucking Polish.
Hey, we were so surprised. Again, they walked in backwards. They told us they were leaving.
Auschwitz, Warsaw, so much horrible shit happened in Poland.
Dachau over there?
Dachau was in Germany.
Okay,
that was
Germany.
the first of them.
There you go.
Well, having seen his fair share of war, Hersey suspected that there was far more to the official story concerning what had actually happened after the bombs detonated at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Hersey knew the human face of war, and his journalistic instincts twitched when he noticed that the only pictures coming out of either city were only of destroyed buildings and bare ruins. In other words, there were no pictures of people.
Honestly, if I could teleport one journalist to this as well, Hunter S. Thompson, peak Hunter S. Thompson.
Well, this is kind of
This
where
guy
he
is
came
kind
out of.
Right.
This is the generation he came out of.
It's
This is the time.
Well, is it fair to say it's narrative journalism?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of narrative journalism. Right. Yeah, the new journalism, as they put it. And so, in the summer of 1946, nearly a year after the bombings, Hersey was granted a 2-week pass to visit Hiroshima so he could see and hear what had actually happened.
He had a backstage pass. Did he get a lanyard?
I honestly, he better have.
He interviewed.
Better be made out of fucking lead.
Seriously.
He interviewed 40 survivors as to what they'd experienced during and since the bombings. But eventually, inspired by a book called The Bridge of San Luis Rey that he'd read on the ship to Hiroshima, he focused on the stories of 6 people, including that of Reverend Tanimoto.
Okay.
But after writing what amounted to a horror story, Hersey did not submit the finished article to the government for censorship clearance. Instead, he said fuck them and gave the story directly to the New Yorker, who dedicated an entire issue to Hersey's unflinching portrait of Hiroshima.
So he's a whistleblower.
Yeah.
He was.
The article was soon published as a book, and it was so definitive, so harrowing, and so well written that it's probably the reason why the focus is still mostly placed on Hiroshima to this day.
Well, we got incredible testimony.
Yeah. But either way, Americans were, for the first time, exposed to the realities of atomic warfare. Human stories were finally attached to the bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which caused a reckoning across America over what their government had done. But if the average American felt guilt and shame over Hiroshima, it was nothing compared to what some of the scientists at the Manhattan Project, the ones who'd known exactly what they were building, they were feeling quite a few feelings.
As they should.
I thought you were going to say the Germans. You're like, yes.
As one scientist put it, he wept as he read the story, and he was filled with shame to, quote, recall the whoopee spirit that the team had after the bombing had been successfully detonated over a highly populated city.
Well, again, they sort of understood what the fuck they were making. They sort of understood it. I do think in that way, they knew that they needed to make it blow up. But they just thought, again, it's blowing up. It's just going to blow up.
It's a bomb.
It's a bomb. We're just making it. We're no different than hundreds of thousands of other people making bombs right now.
Yeah, no different from the guys firebombing Tokyo or Dresden or whatever.
Yes.
They're just making a bomb. It's going to blow up, and then that's it. But while Hersey brought the story of Hiroshima to the world, the effect it had on a lot of Americans was less sympathy than fear. In other words, a lot of Americans started worrying about what would happen to us.
Me.
Well, it does make sense for self-preservation reasons.
Sure.
It does seem like it's getting a little cold in here.
Ooh. Yep, the wonders of the atomic age. The wonders of the atomic age quickly turned into Cold War paranoia and fear, and the justification of a nuclear arms race was shifted from beating the Germans to the bomb to having a larger nuclear arsenal than the Soviets.
Yeah, why didn't the kids of Hiroshima and Nagasaki just get under their desk?
I feel like
Because
that's
I was told you just get under
your
your desk.
You get under
You
your
put your
desk,
hands
behind your head. Yeah, that's how you protect yourself.
Like that.
It is interesting.
In no way is that completely fucking useless.
It's also interesting because this is technically, in his way, Robert Oppenheimer, in his way of kind of figuring out how to get himself out of his own moral quandary after all of this, was like, well, that's why everyone should have atomic bombs. Because then we'll never have war ever again.
Yeah, if everybody has an atomic bomb, then everybody knows that if I use my atomic bomb, they're going to use their atomic bomb,
And you know what
we're
you're
all
gonna
going
have?
to be a crater.
Couple of carve-outs for Iran. And then, I think it's basically it.
I just feel that wasn't the answer.
Iraq had yellow cake.
It did not.
No, it didn't.
Nope, it had nothing. They were not. You know what's funny?
They don't even eat cake over there.
You know what I just?
They do.
You know what I just learned? Remember when they supposedly found the mobile chemical weapons labs?
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, "There's ammonia in here. They could have used it to clean up." You know what the ammonia was?
What was that?
Someone had pissed in there.
Yeah.
I'm Hans Blix. Man, they call me Hans Piss.
Someone found my piss bucket.
Yeah.
Wow.
Someone had just emptied out the truck. Someone just used it as a toilet, and that was used in Colin Powell's speech to the UN to justify the Iraq War.
Hey, our intelligence community is almost never correct.
No. Also, speaking of whistleblowers, 70% of meat in America used to not be allowed, but now they spray it with ammonia, so they allow it for human consumption. It used to only be allowed for dog food, so that's why we're dying as well.
Actually, interesting.
So be very careful.
That is interesting.
Be very careful.
I'm very careful.
Rise from your grave.
Well, between 1946 and 1958, the U.S. government detonated 23 nuclear devices in a series of tests that ranged from the Pacific Ocean to the deserts of Nevada and Utah. And all of these tests caused cancer rates to skyrocket in the surrounding areas.
Also
yeah, guys,
brought
don't we know already?
It definitely brought us to the attention of the reticulants and the grays.
How?
We'll get to it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that they're...
Are we going to get to that in this episode?
Yes.
Well, the thing is they're detonating these things in places where they don't care about the people. They're detonating this shit next to reservations.
Yes.
Oh.
You know, they don't give a shit what happens if it fucking blows onto a reservation.
Quote unquote, where people, quote unquote, are not supposed to be living.
It's
That's kind of
fucking
what they do.
It is horrible what we've done to the Native American.
Yes.
And we continue to do it. They just lost water rights again because Kavanaugh said that it was in 1854. There was a treaty.
Wow.
It was like in 1893. He's like, we better uphold that treaty.
I feel like
It's like,
there
oh
should
my
be a
fucking
cutoff
God.
of what counts. I think 1990. I think that's the cutoff. I think that's the
you know what we
cutoff.
could do with the Native American, a redo.
Yeah.
And be like,
can't-
let's redo it.
Renegotiate.
Renegotiate.
That's fucking insane. We're still using treaties to fuck
Yes.
over the tribes.
Yeah, for water.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, the fallout from these tests were so pervasive that a film crew working on the set of the John Wayne movie The Conqueror, in which John Wayne laughably plays Genghis Khan.
The name is Genghis Khan, you commoner.
I feel like he sucks. I
does.
tried to watch John Wayne movies growing up, and I don't
sucks.
like them.
John Wayne's a fucking Nazi. It's
Yeah.
just like they said in the song. John Wayne is a Nazi.
You know what it
I
is
don't like
too? He's passe in a world where we don't really care about like that form of like machismo actor anymore.
No, I'm
Where
fine
he's
with him.
just
Like The Rock.
Wait.
He's more masculine than him.
I don't feel he is as compelling in future analysis than he was at the time. Because at the time, he was like a #1 movie star.
Yeah.
They loved the Western thing. They love this idea. But now you watch it and you're like, actually, he doesn't do anything.
He doesn't do
He
anything.
gets off a horse. He walks over there. He kind of squints. It's like, and honestly, Clint Eastwood, for me, does the same bit, but he does it better. And then he did a
does
whole
do it
movie
better.
with an orangutan.
He does do it better. And that's why my grandfather Herbert never liked John Wayne. But he just didn't like him because he was an actor.
He
Yeah.
didn't like actors.
Yeah, John
That's
Wayne.
what I'm sure all of our grandparents were like. He's just a fucking actor.
Yeah.
Honestly, my grandfather knew him very well.
Did he really?
Really?
Yeah, they hung out. My mom met him like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
John Wayne?
Yeah, John Wayne.
John
'Cause
Wayne was an incredible racist, a fascist, and a coward.
Go on, Henry. How
Very
does your
tall.
family know him?
Extremely tall, big hands.
6'3".
My grandfather used to work as a PR person for Pepsi. He
I
was
know
head
that.
of the relations for Pepsi. So he knew John Wayne. He knew Henry Kissinger. He knew fucking Ronald Reagan. He knew Joan Crawford. Him and Joan Crawford. They have
I
a
love
whole bunch of pictures.
Joan.
There's pictures of my grandfather
great.
with Marilyn Monroe. He knew her. He knew a couple of the Kennedys. He was strange.
Apparently, Mama Dearest is a lie.
Yes,
Mommy
it
Dearest?
is.
Yeah.
It is
Apparently,
framed
it's
more.
a lie.
It is
Yeah.
framed more.
Well, a lot of the people who worked on The Conqueror, which is widely considered one of the worst movies ever made, they developed cancer at a far younger age than was normal because they filmed in the Utah desert near a nuclear bomb testing site. Yeah. And that's like,
for some reason, I don't know if movies should be filmed in deserts anymore.
That's cool.
well, I mean, they say that, some people say that this is a myth because the film crew died at the same rate as the general population of cancer.
Or got cancer
They
at the
got
same
cancer
rate.
at the same rate. I think it's like 22%, but they died far younger than many people died of cancer. Yeah,
That would change the math there a
it
little bit.
does, yeah.
And it depends on what they're doing on set.
Regardless, though, the first of these tests was Operation Crossroads, in which the government blew up a bunch of captured Japanese and German battleships just to see what the bomb could do to purely military targets and what it could do underwater.
Sort of a fun day.
That
That's kind
test
of a
is
fun
fun.
day.
And
Yeah.
it made SpongeBob.
Oh,
This test, however, would be better known by its location, Bikini Atoll. And my papa was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
did nothing to stop it.
absolutely. What would you do if you
Yeah.
could stop the atomic bomb testing? Absolutely nothing, Mr. Perks.
Yeah, he was present as a sailor in the Navy. And that's also where the name Bikini comes from, as the Bikini was released like a couple of weeks after Bikini Atoll, and the inventor was like, that's a great name.
It's sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And when,
gotta see them titties.
when I think of the greatest generation, I always say I want to see them in bikinis.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yes, indeed. Roosevelt.
What is it? You sitting on a skunk? Oh, Eleanor, you gotta maintain them tan lines.
Ooh-wee.
However, it would be the second test held at Bikini Atoll in 1954 that would have a huge cultural impact the world over. Having moved on from the atomic bomb, the United States had started testing a far more powerful nuclear weapon called the hydrogen bomb, or for short, the H-bomb.
Yeah, because there was one dude within the Manhattan Project was like, I feel that my bomb is more superior in ideas. And they're like, listen, we're already working on a thing. And then this guy just went and built a bigger bomb than the atomic bomb.
You know, it's funny, the guy who actually started the earliest research on the H-bomb was Klaus Fuchs, who was the man who was a spy for the Soviet Union.
Ah, yes.
Close.
Well, during an underwater H-bomb test called Operation Castle, a Japanese fishing boat was destroyed, and the survivors were showered with radioactive fallout in a blast that was 1,000 times more powerful than those above Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Of course, they died. This incident inspired a huge anti-nuclear testing movement in Japan, not least due to the fact that 2 years earlier, the censorship ban on the full scope of what happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki had finally been lifted. The people of Japan finally knew what the fuck had happened there.
Wow.
And as a result, a movie director named Ishiro Honda translated the power and ruination of the atomic bomb into an unstoppable creature named Gojira.
I like Godzilla.
Yeah, I love Godzilla.
He's
dude.
cool.
Yeah. That's good
Holy
noise.
shit.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
That's what
Well,
it sounds like?
I do it. Yeah,
Oh my
I do it at
God.
home all the time. It's one of my favorite noises in the world.
Yeah. Wanted to be a
Wow.
fly on the wall.
Indeed.
That's your cum noise?
That's...
I'm a Godzilla.
Oh,
I'm a
God.
Godzilla.
Godzilla, perhaps from Center Earth, Middle Earth. We just simply don't
No,
know.
they just retconned all that fucking shit.
No,
Okay.
no, Godzilla is from deep in the Pacific Ocean, and he was down there for millions of years, 2
Sure.
million years, as they put it in the movie. And then when the Americans started testing the H-bomb, that's when his habitat cracked open.
Woke him up.
They destroyed his habitat, and that's when he came up and started destroying Japan.
Well, why would he destroy Japan? He
Because-
technically should have come to the U.S.
He was grouchy. He was woken up from his nap.
That is true.
And Japan was the closest island available.
I can't even imagine how grouchy I would be after a 2 million year nap.
I
No,
know.
he wasn't napping. He was out there. He was fucking around. He was having a good time. He was propagating his species.
He was being a Godzilla.
Yeah,
He was coming.
That's what they said. There were a bunch of Godzillas down there.
That's a great name.
Yeah. Well, in creating Godzilla and setting him loose in Tokyo, Honda recreated the helplessness felt by the Japanese in the face of the unfathomable strength of a nuclear weapon. And he, in fact, used the real-life incident of the destroyed fishing boat as direct inspiration for the opening scene in the first Godzilla movie, which, if you haven't seen, is fucking incredible.
Of all those old school movies, the horror movies and sci-fi movies, Godzilla, the original, holds up like a motherfucker.
God damn, it
It's
does.
got really great scenes. It's genuinely creepy and scary, but also like it's got great scale. That's like
Wow.
back when movies were big.
Yes, indeed. It holds up like Chris Chan then, if it holds up like a motherfucker.
Whoa! I will
Yes.
eventually do my deep dive in Christian.
I know.
And
it's
you'll
gonna
do it
be,
alone.
Disgusting.
It's the only way to do it.
It is indeed.
I
agree.
have to be alone.
I agree.
Well, as a side note, perhaps the most telling line in Godzilla came from a moment on a train between two commuters who were speculating on the destruction Godzilla might cause in Tokyo, right before he unleashes his fiery atomic breath on the nation's capital. He has, that's the cool thing about it. There's all these like atomic bomb like nods where he has this atomic breath that sets everything on fire. It destroys everything. But basically, this woman on the train says, I barely escaped the atomic bomb at Nagasaki, and now I got to deal with this?
Was there anyone that said it's too soon?
No,
They were
absolutely
like, this
not.
is cathartic.
No,
No,
it's,
they were
it's
extremely ready.
It's extraordinarily cathartic. This happens again and again with people. I mean,
Yeah.
think about how many, fucking 9/11 movies there were, like 2 or 3 years after 9/11.
I mean, I think Nicolas Cage had that one about a year after, and then
I mean, they were all awful.
They
and they
were.
were completely unnecessary. But
they were.
But this is just what happens to cultures. Like in the years after 9/11, look at American cinema was nothing but disaster porn for 2 decades.
Oh, it still is.
Yeah, it
That's all
still
Marvel
is. Like all we see is just the destruction of cities, the destruction
Yeah.
of the world over and over and over again.
Isn't
This
it
is
kind
just
of
what happens to
relaxing in a way,
culture.
though? In my way, I kind of like it.
In a way,
Yeah,
it's
it's
relaxing.
The total destruction of everything, because then you just keep moving. Because in the end, you got to pay taxes anymore.
It's a movie.
But in this line, I think that this woman gave voice to what a lot of people in Japan felt at the time. American testing of the H-bomb in the Pacific was directly affecting them. It was poisoning their food supply. The fish, they couldn't eat it out of the fucking ocean because it was radioactive.
Well, now they just do that to Americans.
Yeah. And well, they also got quite a bit of it as well.
Yeah,
we
they
got the
fucked
least
up.
of it.
Yeah, they got fucked up.
Yeah, and the Americans were killing even more Japanese civilians. And this was all while the Japanese were still dealing with the long-term effects of the first 2 bombs the Americans had dropped. And while Japan was dealing with its own trauma, America was having somewhat of a reckoning concerning the men who'd actually built the bomb.
Oh, yeah. They propped them up, and they were happy to have them, and then they decided to destroy them from the inside out.
Now, perhaps it was America's unconscious guilt over the horror their country had unleashed upon hundreds of thousands of people. But by the 50s, America had begun to turn on the man who'd been the most responsible for constructing the bomb. That man was J. Robert Oppenheimer, and his reckoning came in the form of the Red Scare.
You see, J. Robert Oppenheimer at the time was extremely popular. And he was kind of like angling. They were talking about like, oh, Oppie could be president.
Yeah, like Einstein popular.
Yeah, they were ready because he wanted to get involved in all of these various, basically he wanted to figure out how do I control how we legislate things around atomic power from here on out. He's like, I want people to hear my opinion and move forward. But it is interesting because then he made a bunch of weird moves that kind of, his communist group kind of kicked him out because for a while he was like, we need to do nuclear proliferation. We need to give out the secrets to everybody. But eventually he came around to this idea of like, all right, we'll keep it an American secret. But if I get in there, maybe if I get inside of the U.S. government, I can kind of direct policy from the inside out. And what is everybody who discovers? What happens when you go on the inside is that you're irrevocably corrupted by the machinations of the government.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get on the inside, trying to fix it all, eventually you're just playing the same games as fucking everybody else because them games are as old as time.
Uh-huh.
There's a big club. You're not in it.
That's right.
Well, I don't want to be in it.
You ran for office.
I don't want to be. Well, that was for Brooklyn Borough president, and that was a fantastic experience. And Eric Adams is a total failure.
Yep.
Yes, he is.
So there you go, everybody. You too can get 1.4%.
It's that easy.
Well, as we've established time and again, Robert Oppenheimer wasn't a communist, but he was friends with a lot of communists back in the 30s when being a communist wasn't dangerous or even all that strange.
He was
He just
stupid
liked
a communist.
Yeah, he liked the parties. He wanted to go bang a bunch of hot commie chicks.
Yeah.
I mean,
A lot of people back in the 30s, they were flirting with communist ideology because of the Great Depression. For example, when my family cleared out the house of some of my Oklahoma Dust Bowl ancestors back when I was a kid, we found multiple books on communism openly displayed on their bookshelves.
Well, it probably made you look worldly, too. It made you look like, oh, look, we're interested in shit.
It's not
we're
that.
interested in shit.
No, it's
to
not
be
that
fair,
at
his
all.
family was they're the Dust Bowl side.
I know.
No, I mean, these were fucking survivors, and they were also, they were smart people at the same time.
Oh, yeah, in communism, honestly, in times of need, you're kind of like, this would be a great time. Would be great if the government can come and help us all come together and we can share resources.
I think that we could use a 5% dollop. I mean, we're not even giving kids lunches anymore.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We could take a scoop out of the little ice cream there.
I think so.
I mean, for these people, capitalism had obviously failed so miserably that the consequences of capitalism was dust pneumonia.
Oh, yeah.
People were drowning in dust.
That's horrible. Man, that's a whole nother thing unlocked now.
Man,
I don't want to die in
There's
dust.
been a lot of bad shit in this series.
Yeah, I don't want to fucking die by drowning in dust.
Yeah, dust pneumonia is a horrible way to die. But by the mid-50s, America was gripped by the Red Scare, and of course led by Wisconsin Senator Joseph McCarthy.
Yay!
And Oppenheimer.
And his totally straight lawyer, Roy Cohn.
Completely straight.
Totally.
And Oppenheimer came into the Red Scare crosshairs in particular because he'd previously pissed off a McCarthy ally named Louis Strauss.
No one liked his weepy fucking attitude. Nobody liked him. They were all over him because especially when he went to Truman, and there's that classic story where he walked into Truman's office and he was just like, the blood on my hands. I can't believe. And then Truman throws him out of the office and he tells his old aides, don't let that motherfucker back in this office ever again. The blood was on my hands. I dropped the bomb. He just made it. Like, it was this thing where it's like, so Oppenheimer wasn't making himself a popular
Chris
person.
Chan met with Truman? No, that's a comic book.
But the other thing on the other side, though, everyone fucking hated Louis Strauss as well.
Nobody liked anybody.
Yeah, but I will
No
say,
one liked McCarthy.
McCarthy showed he's like a Ted Cruz.
Yes.
He was like actually maybe worse.
He's
No, I
like
don't know for
powerful,
sure.
but still everybody hates him.
Far worse than
It
Ted Cruz.
just- Not far worse. But it does show you the
It
power.
just shows how bad Ted Cruz is. You know what I mean? It shows how, he doesn't have the ability to be a true villain.
Yeah.
It shows you the power of just having a suitcase you don't open.
Yeah.
That's it.
It literally is just the
tapping
Howie
it.
Mandel.
Tapping
Like,
it.
you don't want to know what I have in there.
You don't know what's in this. Just full of snakes.
It was full of that. It really was porno mags and booze.
Well, Louis Strauss had a grudge against Oppenheimer because Oppenheimer had openly ridiculed one of Strauss's recommendations on atomic research during a public congressional hearing in 1951.
So we're going to get a little sensitive here?
Yeah. Krauss was, he was butthurt, to put it very, very, I hate that term. I fucking can't stand it.
But it worked
In this
for
case,
him.
he was butthurt.
Yes, in this case, yeah. Well, Strauss took this slight personally, and using previous intelligence that Oppenheimer had consorted with communists in the 30s, Strauss soon became convinced that Oppenheimer was a secret commie, and he got to work convincing others that Oppenheimer was a secret commie.
And there's
Guys, I'm going to tell you this right now. There's no such thing as a secret communist.
They tell
let you know.
They tell you immediately. It's like a vegan.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, Oppenheimer has been fighting being called a communist this entire fucking time.
Yes, he has.
He was like, I went to meetings back in the day. My girlfriend was one.
Look at a picture of Rebecca. You telling me you won't be a communist
Like,
for her?
seriously, I was not with nerds anymore.
Dude, if I married Gwyneth Paltrow, somehow
You're going to end up with a jade egg inside of you somewhere because
Exactly.
that's what the family does.
And you guys just don't get it.
I don't know, Henry. The fucking communists I knew in New York were the biggest fucking nerds I knew.
Different.
Oh,
this
they
is
are.
better.
You love me, they are.
This is when it was cool.
But
You
they
know
were
what I mean?
funny, and they all worked at bookstores.
Yeah, they
so
did.
that's actually very nice.
It was.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, yeah.
And they
All
did
the
great. They did great fucking stuff for unionizing the Strand and all
They
that.
did.
Like they were amazing, but they were fucking nerds.
That's the idea.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to, because with a capitalist, you don't have to read a book to be a capitalist. You just have to have big tits, a great idea, and you can make it all the way to the top. It's
better if you don't.
But a communist, you do have to read a lot of stuff.
you
It's
do
too much reading. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to read a lot and you got to be able to comprehend it.
Theoretical, yeah.
Now, as I said a few episodes back, scientists in the Manhattan Project with Soviet ties, this was not without precedent. Theoretical physicist Klaus Fuchs, as I said earlier, he'd been a key member of the Manhattan Project's inner circle, and it was discovered in 1949, years after we dropped the atomic bomb, that he'd been feeding information to the Soviets from day one.
Yeah, they were already like only 2 years out.
Yeah, this information had allowed the Soviets to cheat their way to nuclear weaponry an estimated 7 to 10 years sooner than if they'd been left to figure it out on their own.
And if they had
Fuchs.
just figured out an actual peaceful way of negotiating, working on this, because that was a problem with the Potsdam conferences. They were trying to figure out, like, what do we do with nuclear weapons? And let's just say the Soviet Union wasn't being super chill. And so when not that we were, because we just killed fucking 500,000 people using it.
Not, but the Potsdam Conference was before all this.
But this is a part of the conversation of like, oh, you know what we'll do? Like after the fact, they're trying to figure out all these negotiations. It ain't working out.
No.
Well, not only that, but like Truman had hinted to Stalin. Like Truman was like, he thought that he had, but
Had his number.
He had a bomb, to drop on Stalin, like where he was going to hint,
Yeah.
like, we've got this, this super weapon that we're about to use on Japan. And he thought that Stalin was going to shit his pants, but Stalin already knew all about it because of Klaus
because
Fuchs.
of
It's
Fuchs.
already
And so-
public
And
information.
then
Yeah, and-
Stalin just showed him a picture of a little dog named Laika. Isn't it Laika?
You're the one in space.
Laika. Yeah, the one.
This is years later. This is much later.
Yeah, Laika wasn't alive at that point.
Laika was dead.
It was done.
He wasn't born yet.
Really? I wonder how old Laika was before they shot him up into space.
I think he was only like 3 or 4. I think it was a
What did they
pretty.
do with the puppy, huh?
But I had
Yeah.
a whole point.
Oh, okay.
I had like a whole point. I don't remember what it
What
was.
was it?
I don't remember.
But
It's gone.
Stalin.
Yeah.
But Stalin, the Soviet Union, the U.S., we were fighting, but the Soviet Union was all mad.
7 to 10. They got it 7 to 10 years earlier than they should have.
Because Stalin already knew because this fucks guy.
I like Stalin's mustache.
It's a good mustache.
Man, I will say about World War II, powerful moments for the mustache.
Oh, yeah.
All
Oh, yeah.
different kinds.
Some mustaches are so powerful they can't be repeated.
Unless you're Michael Jordan.
Yeah, you
You
remember.
literally have the Nazi stash in a Hanes
Yeah.
commercial. Because
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
Again, he's allowed. He
do
is the
whatever he
one
wants.
American as well.
But that's the thing, though, about Klaus Fuchs and feeding the information to the Soviet Union. It could be argued that objectively it was a good thing in the long run because it was the only thing that kept America from using nuclear weapons during the Korean War.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
But J. Robert Oppenheimer was basically saying his message was the math is already there. They're going to get it no matter what. It's obvious. He's like, it's already there. From the theoretical papers, you can automatically extrapolate what you need from the forward to make a bomb. So he was like, there's no even reason to keep a secret because anybody can figure it out.
Isn't that why the Korean War is the forgotten war, though?
Why?
Because
think
we
it's-
didn't bomb anybody.
I think
there was
it's
no
because
big boom.
Because I know I'm a moron, but it's because any other war, for the most part, I can give you at least a very basic rundown of like what it was about and what happened during it. For the most part, for America, the Korean War, no idea.
It's just a little proxy war gone fucking out of hand.
It's very complicated. Yeah. And
Complicated.
it's extremely complicated. And it never ended.
Also, in North Korea right now, it's officially illegal to commit suicide.
Wow.
Wow.
They'll kill your whole family if you do. No, that's true.
That's kind of fun.
I was about to ask how they were going to enforce that,
Yeah,
but
they kill
wow,
the
that
whole
is
family.
that is
That's
one
a
hell of
really-
a punishment.
It's a really good idea. If you
also, if
hate
you-
your aunt, just kill yourself.
Yeah. Also, if you survive, they kill you. That's true. That's a weird. Life is weird. Isn't it?
And
It is.
They kill you, but do they kill you and kill your family?
Oh, I think they kill it. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
just killing everyone.
Wow.
It's
No, that's incredible.
kind of in the twilight. And it's good if you, whatever.
Man, if I went to North Korea, though, I'd be able to play like professional basketball.
I don't think that you would be able to do anything.
Yeah.
You see me like playing like, dunking on people and stuff. That'd be awesome.
No,
They make the hoops.
No,
The hoops
it's
in
still
North
the
Korea
same.
are
It's still
the
the same.
same,
foot.
No,
yeah.
they're like 6.5 feet.
It's not the moon. You still can.
No, I jump higher there.
No, I don't.
I'm less gravity there.
But even though there was an ever-growing cabal determined to ruin Oppenheimer's reputation, General Leslie Groves, a loyal friend, even if he was a little bit evil at times, he stressed his emphatic belief that Oppenheimer's blood ran red, white, and blue.
We had
Look
many
at that.
opportunities to fuck everything up, and he didn't.
But even so, a 4-week security hearing was held in 1954 to determine whether Oppenheimer should be allowed to keep his security clearance. And by a vote of 2-1, Oppenheimer was pushed out of the government atomic research game.
Wow, it's just a 3-person panel?
Mhm.
Dang.
Eventually, though, the government came back around on Oppenheimer. In 1963, JFK presented Oppenheimer with the Enrico Fermi Award for Scientific Excellence.
Nice.
And
Here's your fucking trophy.
Yeah.
Hey, trophies are a big deal.
The funny thing, though, is that, the historians think that had it not been for the Red Scare, it would have been the Robert Oppenheimer Award for
Yeah,
Scientific
he would have been
Excellence.
president. He probably would have been president of the United States of America.
He was too weird to be president.
But
We don't
Woodrow
like-
Wilson.
Woodrow
What about-
Wilson.
If
But
you're
that-
talking about weirdos who have been president,
But that was long before. That's the thing, is that was long before anybody actually knew what the president was like.
yeah.
That was like 1900 or something.
I'm just saying, he was a weirdo.
It was more like 1911.
Well, he was the one that really brought in the fucking corporatocracy.
Yeah, weird long
kind of
nose,
a
tiny
piece of
glasses.
shit.
Yeah. KKK member.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Wow.
Or at the very least, KKK sympathizer, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
That's what they say. You know what you call a person who puts up with Nazis?
A Nazi.
That's right.
Yeah, if one man sits with 9 Nazis at a table, you have 10 Nazis at a table.
That's right.
Bold statements.
2 years later, though, Oppenheimer was diagnosed with lung cancer due to his chain smoking.
Oh.
And by 1967, he was dead, although he had been vindicated.
Jesus Christ.
Really
Can't
nice,
even make it
Marcus.
to fucking
Really
Woodstock.
nice.
Yeah.
He was dead.
He was dead.
Great.
dead.
Okay.
And clouds of crows descended.
Just did he melt? At any point did he slough?
Yeah, what else fucking worse happened? His
Slough
fucking grave
anywhere?
to a place where they fucking euthanized a bunch of like blind children.
But he was vindicated by the scientific community by the end of it. His place in history, however, in full retrospect, is complicated to say the least, and will likely remain so forever.
I know it'll be very quickly wrapped up in that 3-hour movie.
I know.
And
I'm very
and that
excited.
movie's gonna tell us all what happened in a way, and we're all gonna be like, "Oh, Robert Oppenheimer, you're the best guy I've seen."
I have some faith
No,
in
it's
this
gonna be-
feature film. It also comes out on my birthday.
That's nice. Well,
I already got tickets for it.
the person who wrote American Prometheus came out of it and said that it was highly historically accurate.
Oh, sure,
They
sure.
said that it's a chilling movie.
No, of course, yeah. Christopher
Yeah.
Nolan's not gonna fuck it up. I am excited.
I mean,
to
he
see it.
could.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, again,
fuck it up.
send us money.
Yeah,
Send us money.
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all we're doing is making it. I just gave an advertisement
Yeah, we did.
for,
we
for
don't. We
the
get
fucking
nothing.
movie.
We get
And
nothing.
I haven't
No,
even
we
seen
never
it
get
yet.
anything.
Yeah, you're on strike. You shouldn't even be working, Christopher Nolan.
Well, it's not. That's strike. It's already done. The movie's
Whatever, it
done.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right, so now my turn.
Your turn for a bit.
It's really
Okay.
quick. You know what's
Oh, we're
okay?
going to go to the Grays now?
He's big into this
A
entire.
little bit.
Listen, okay. So number one, what happened here? Right?
What, we just did 6 episodes. With what?
What are we even talking about?
We're
Right?
talking about the atomic bomb and
Number
Hiroshima and
two,
Nagasaki.
you know what we've been talking about this whole time? Opening up the universal cloaca to alien attention.
Okay.
Right.
I believe it's possible.
So we now know 1945, sure, bomb, big deal.
And let's
It was
go
a
ahead.
huge deal.
And,
Huge deal.
and let's
Big
go
deal,
ahead and
Roseanne.
say, let's put on top of this, let's put a veneer of respectability due to the fact that alien, or at the very least, unidentified aerial phenomena have been proven to be in existence.
Well, now
there's a veneer of respectability
We're
to
starting.
Henry.
Sure, I agree.
I'm just saying.
I'm already in.
Basically, if what David Grush's current whistleblower is talking about is remotely true, there is a whole chapter of American history that is also then true, which is really fucking wacky. And one of those chapters, one of the couple of series pages in that chapter, we will definitely be talking about with seriousness if David Grush's stuff comes out to be actually vaguely real.
And he's the new whistleblower.
He
who's
is.
Just on television.
It is what happened July 3rd, 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico.
Yes.
Now we know that on the Brazil farm that sunny desert day, an object that they did not comprehend crash landed in that field and created a 3/4 long mile series of debris.
And you know the first thing the aliens were told? Oh, it gets cold at night. It's a desert.
You just, you're going to want to wear a jacket. It gets really hot in the afternoon. If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Which is what everybody says about every city you've ever been to and every city you've ever lived in.
It's true sometimes.
But so this object crashed, the Brazil farm. These very scared men who are so used to seeing these things because they're around all these various areas where Project Mogul is currently being tested. They've seen these objects in the sky. We know that Los Alamos is only 3.5 hours south of this location. And what's right next to it is Roswell Air Base. So they see all of this debris. They don't know what the fuck it is. It's been left out there for days, which is also very interesting, which should go on to disprove their idea that it was some experimental balloon, Project Mogul, blah, blah, blah. Right? So they called the Royal Air Base. Guess who is occupying the Roswell Air Base? The 509th Group. The guys that were the flight team that flew the Enola Gay to go drop the bombs on Hiroshima. That crew, including their bombardier, a guy named Jesse Marshall, went over, was the first man to see the wreckage that happened. He's like, this is the weirdest shit I've ever seen. This is a guy that is used to think about it, this guy who went through the training in the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
He was like, what in the living fuck is all this stuff? He packed it into a bunch of boxes, took it back to his home, showed his kids all of this weird shit. This like weird aluminum foil that you pull apart and then it would collapse back in on itself. These I-beams with weird like symbols drawn. Don't know what the fuck it is. He brings it to his commander. His commander gives the okay to go to the newspapers and say, we have found footage. We have found the wreckage of a flying saucer, which is where we get that very famous picture, where we get the very famous headline where, like UFOs found in Roswell, blah, blah, blah. But then the next day, he takes Jesse Marshall into another room and he's like, this is the stuff you found. And hands him a box, and it's just weather balloon wreckage.
Yeah.
And then he takes out, and that's where we get the picture of Jesse Marshall holding up that piece of weird aluminum foil in the newspaper, disproving it. Then you see actually flying saucer was a weather balloon. We don't know now what the fuck it is. It's just like wild to think that all in this area, this shit's all happening at once.
So that's the thread.
That's the thread, yeah.
All right.
No, dude, that's real. But
no, I love it. I mean, I think that's fascinating.
But what if there's something to nuclear abilities, right? Because we know the fact that Greys got interested in us because of this ability. Why? I don't know. Are Greys just future human? I have this like idea.
They already have the ability?
This is like a highfalutin idea. This is like dumb, super sci-fi based, right? What if nuclear signatures are bookmarks throughout time and allows time-traveling objects, which is kind of what David Grush is kind of hinting at, that they're saying that the stuff that we're finding at the bottom of the ocean is actually, they keep saying it's not from this Earth, that maybe it's something either in a dimension that's in the future and they're literally coming back. And maybe that's how they find other points in time. It's from nuclear signatures.
So you want to have more nuclear explosions?
No, I'm
you
just
want
saying.
more bombs. So you want more bombs, more interactions with the alien life
This guy
form.
Jesse,
it is possible.
It's just crazy. This guy Jesse Marshall's life is just fucking nuts. The fact that you're tied into all of this shit at once is like very like. He was a strange man.
Sounds like he had a hell of a life. We should. Is there any place on Earth we can just like bomb a whole bunch and just be like, "Come on, hang out"?
The moon, Grace.
No, we can't blow up the moon.
No, but just set off bombs on the moon.
You think that's close enough, and then we can meet on the moon, neutral territory?
Well, the moon could certainly be very important to us in the future if, as Henry said, we could build nuclear bases up there.
Well, that'd be our way station.
Yeah, and then we could bring nuclear power cells down to Earth via a gigantic space elevator.
Yeah,
the
space truckers.
The Hubble just had some new pictures released as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, by the 1980s, it was generally agreed upon amongst historians that President Truman was well aware of all the alternatives to end the war without using the bomb. He knew that we didn't need to invade Japan to secure a victory, and he knew that the claim that the bomb had to be dropped to save American lives was a lie used to sell the bomb to the American public. The actual reasons why he chose to drop the bomb, however, are many. They range from, we spent a lot of money on this fucking thing, so we got to use it. We got to show the Soviets that we mean business. It could have even just been fucking simple revenge against the Japanese for dragging us into a war that was, by all accounts, a blood-soaked horror show from beginning to end. It killed over 40,000 Americans, wounded almost 150,000 more. There was this fucking grudge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In the end, though, it was probably a combination of all three.
Oh, yeah.
The fact remains, however, that just the existence of nuclear weaponry can be hard to fully comprehend. The Manhattan Project was such a massive turning point in human history that it's hard to put into words what it really meant for mankind to split the atom.
We just did 6 episodes.
Yeah, we did, though. It's actually, we did try to.
18 pages of script per episode. You do the fucking math.
Yeah.
You technically can. This is a book.
It's close to it. It's like a third of a book.
Yeah, wow.
Now, I'm not going to say that we should all come together to push for nuclear disarmament because, frankly, it isn't up to us, and it never was. The doomsday clock has been close to midnight for a long time and shows no sign of turning back anytime soon.
No, they just put it fucking 5 seconds closer to midnight. It's turn it back.
Yeah. And no amount of protest is going to change that. See, with atomic weaponry, humanity ripped something from the grip of nature itself and introduced it into the world without thinking of the consequences beyond the nearsighted view of one tribe trying to scare another tribe with a bigger stick.
Is it weird to say that makes me more proud of us?
I mean, it's so simple and so complex all at the same time.
Like other powerful technological innovations, like, say, social media, it's quite possible that humans simply can't be trusted with nuclear weapons. We're too violent, too volatile, too temperamental. In fact, it is a miracle that only 2 nuclear weapons have been used in aggression since their inception almost 80 years ago. But, on the other hand, perhaps it isn't a miracle.
Yeah, it's a gift from time travelers who came in order to, we had to invent nuclear technology in order to create the hole in the gap that allows them to shoot through time sections to our time.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank
That's
you for
a very important piece
interjecting
of
me on
information. He's talking about time flaps.
Well, perhaps we can handle that power because we've been handling it. Aside, of course, from a couple of close calls and oopsie-doos that almost ended the world during the Cold War.
I mean, that seems like a real big yada yada, but
We did just kind of briefly talk about that one plane that just accidentally dropped something over North Carolina. What was that, 10 years ago or some shit?
That bomb just like rolled around a street.
Yeah, the flock of geese that almost ended the world, so on and so
It
forth.
is amazing how the human brain just wraps it all up together and just be like, oh, I guess that happens.
Yeah. But even so, in every case, there was someone in the room with enough intelligence and compassion to prevent the world from blowing up. There was always someone there to keep it from happening. And if history is any indication, we have a good chance of that trend continuing. In fact, considering how many military personnel we have who listen to this show, it may one day be up to one of you to be that person. So go forth with mercy. And if it is ever your choice to decide whether or not to press that button, remember the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And of course, when he means press that button, get that Uber Eats, you're going to want to have lunch, and you'll be different when you're done.
As far as I'm concerned, the only bombs I'm dropping are the jokes I'm telling.
There
That's
you go.
right.
Yeah,
Well,
buddy.
all
Wow.
right. I mean, it is very scary. Humans brought us into this. Science brought us here as well. But it is just, it does, like the man who saved the world, fantastic documentary about the Russian.
Oh, yeah.
It's just one person.
Yeah. Just one guy.
Man, you just got to hope they make the right decision at the right time. But
It's the X factors of history we bring up all the time. It's that human element.
it's just somebody
It's what's keeping us alive. And we just kind of keep that playing, that whole, like, let's keep us
Yeah.
alive game.
you know how like people fail up all the time?
Yeah,
So then it's just like,
that is true. But I do.
we have faith. We have faith.
We have faith. We have to have faith.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, then this fucking weird chaos magic ritual that we accidentally did many years ago
Yeah.
that seems to manifest things out in the world after we talk about them on this show. It's happened, I think, about 3 dozen times
We
now.
just have to keep
Let's
knocking
we
on
just have
wood.
to keep
Knocking
knocking
on
on
wood.
wood
Keep on
and put the
knocking on
positivity
wood.
out there so that we don't manifest some sort of nuclear explosion.
I'm more scared of all the sonar weapons.
Well, sonar
There's so many
weapons
different
are
weapons not to be
rough.
scared of.
And
It's
then,
like-
there's the gray goop. We can do a gray goop incident where our nano machine technology kind of goes haywire and makes a giant encompassing gray goop to destroy the world. There's also solar flares that we're still waiting for the big one. George Norrie, afraid to this day.
Yep.
Solar flare's going to be large.
So there's so many ways for everything to end. So I'm actually still holding out for that.
Yeah, I'm holding out for the solar flare as well. Yeah, because we can come back from that.
I'm sort
slowly. The first couple months are going to be rough.
Yeah.
I'm holding out for Godzilla.
Oh,
Godzilla.
Man, this was crazy, dude. So much work. Good work, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you to our whole research team that helped us with fucking everything.
Thank you to Madeline Shaw, who I will say is a co-producer on this series.
Oh, yeah. She killed great job. Joel did great work. I want to thank Rob and Fernando that have been working on the show. We want to thank everybody. We did it. We landed her in the harbor.
We did.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, come and check it out. We've got a couple of special announcements. We are going to be in San Diego at the San Diego Comic-Con. I know Friday is our day.
Friday, and I think we're going to be signing on Friday and doing a panel on Saturday, and probably signing on Saturday as well. So we'll see y'all there.
Well, there you go. And I'm going to be in Las Vegas that weekend, yucking it up on Sunday at some place in Las Vegas. I think it's called Wise Guys.
You go see that motherfucker. And then, if you were in the Los Angeles area, come and see us do the final performance of our tour, Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, at the Palace Theater, November 4th. But for those of you that cannot be in town to see it live, we're going to do one last final big stream show to get this tour out of our buttholes.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for supporting the shows and the Last Podcast Network. Everyone's doing such a great job, and our little serious ventures as well. And do we have anything else other than the normal stuff? Thanks for all your support, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this series. I hope you learned something. Hope you laughed. And,
I hope you didn't.
We don't have to
I hope you fucking cried.
Well, it's a bit of both.
They might have.
That's the power of this show.
Yeah.
You laugh, you cry, you learn, you think, and then also you're dumber.
Yeah, and you're also dumber at the same time.
So bizarre.
Yeah. It all evens out.
It really does.
Don't worry, our next series is going to make you much stupider.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for that. I need to just bathe in cryptid blood.
We got some.
I just want cryptid talk for the next month.
We'll do it.
All right, everyone, hail yourselves.
Hail Satan.
Again.
Legislation.
Hail me. Never drop a bomb again.
Don't drop the bomb.
Don't do it.
Oh, send soda.
Oh.
Kill them with sugar.
I mean, honestly, Urn Brew is maybe more dangerous than the atomic bomb.
Well, it used to be. It's Iron Brew, and it used to be dangerous until they took all the fucking sugar out of it, and now it's not as good.
Good Lord.
All right.
This show is made possible by listeners like you. Thanks to our ad sponsors, you can support our shows by supporting them. For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to lastpodcastnetwork.com.